that's a thing. Like, it's a thing that guys already have an issue with women. Is it because maybe they can't get women, or they have mommy issues, or they feel like because they're a male, they're better, so they already have.
It's just an insecurity thing. It has to be.
It has to be.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone successful who's out there being like, this female fighter went into the cage, pour her heart out. Let me say something negative and mean.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people like that, unfortunately. Yeah. It's kind of crazy. I mean, you kind of like, not that you get used to it, but like you get used to seeing it. It doesn't make it right, but it's like if you go on like an MMA junkie post about like, I don't know, Aspen Ladd missing weight, like the comments you're gonna see, you're like, whoa, like that's a little extreme, like. You know what I mean? Like, that's her problem, and, like, yeah, she probably should have missed weight 3 times, but it's also, like, how does that, as a fan, affect you? Besides the fight getting pulled, but it's, like, it doesn't affect your life. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it shouldn't be that big of a deal to you. Like, you shouldn't be that opinionated about, like, her being, like, fat. Like, now you're calling her fat because she's missed weight, when it's, like, in reality, she's probably dieted for, 3 months and just needs to go up a weight class because the weight cutting is crazy.
Yeah. No, it's good that you don't let the comments get to you. Like, I have friends like Benji. He's the owner of Thrash and Raid. He lets comments get to him, and I'm like, bro.
Oh, I used to be battling in my comment sections. Like, it got to the point where it's like my family was like, you gotta stop. Like, it's not worth it. Because I'm not a very confrontational person, but I'm very protective. Whether it's like myself or a teammate's family, like even like other women in the sport. It's like, who are you? Like, why do you think you have the right to say that? But I've kind of learned, like, people are just so, like, miserable that they have to, like, project that onto anything and everything. And if your Instagram post happens to be the thing they're projecting on, like, you can't control that. Like, it's not worth it. Like, they're going to be miserable either way, and you're not going to get to them. Like, no matter what you say, you're not going to get to them. Like, I don't know. I mean, I have on a couple Twitter accounts, like, gotten arguments with people, and, like, they've deleted their whole Twitter, and I'm not gonna lie, like, I get satisfaction off stuff like that, but that's why I don't do it anymore, because like there's so much energy, like especially negative energy, that you're feeding into it, that it's like that's what they want. Like, why spend your time arguing with people online that like don't even have a profile picture? Even if they do, like, what's the point? Like, you don't know them, like, and they're just miserable themselves, so why give them that time of day or that satisfaction?
Oh, definitely. I mean,
easier said than done, but
I think it was Andy Stumps. He asked me, he's like, do you let the comments get to you? Do you have a lot of hate? And when I went on his podcast, I was like, no, I don't get any hate.
Yeah.
And then, because he has a huge platform, him being on Rogan's podcast, like, I don't know, 8 times by now, it reached a lot a lot. And then I started getting a bunch of hate. I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah, it's real.
I was like, oh, what the fuck? At first, I was like, it made me a little bit upset, but then I was like, no. I was like, no. And then if I just felt froggy that moment, I'd be like, dude, I train at Classic and I'm there all the time.
Yeah.
We can talk in person whenever you want.
Yeah.
But don't let it get to you.
No. I mean, I'm still human, so every once in a while. But like I said, I have all my comments and messages off anyways. And like I was saying, I can handle the like, you suck, or like, you shouldn't be fighting, like, well, or like, I don't care about that. But it's like, some people would take real jabs and you're like, you have no business speaking on like stuff like that, but that's why I've turned them off. My life has been a lot more peaceful since, because it's like, if I want to hear and I feel bad because I know, like, I've had a lot of people, like, they'll just like tweet and like I can still get mentioned in something, they just can't comment on my stuff. So some people will like mention me in a tweet and be like, I wish your comments were on, like, I just want to show support. And it's like, I know there's a lot of really good people that want to support and like want to comment about their support or message me about it, but it's like, for me, like, the types of bad messages I get is like, I don't need that. Like, I'm already like trying to like heal myself for certain things and like go through my own process, and it's like that kind of stuff's only like holding me back. Like, there's no point.
I mean, healing is important. I'm happy to hear that you're working on that.
Yeah.
And I know you were saying that losing control kind of, you don't like that.
No, I don't.
But psychedelics, out of all the things I've done,
I
did everything that I possibly could to be the best version of myself, because I know, being a veteran, when I was becoming a veteran, right, leaving the military, I heard all the horror stories of what was happening, and I did everything that I could, but the one thing that I didn't do was psychedelics. And when Mike asked me, do you want to do ketamine therapy? And I told him no. And I wasn't ready for it, and I was fucking scared. And even when
I think you have to be ready mentally for it once you like make that decision, Because I feel like if you go in like half-assing it, it's like for me, if I'm like maybe, and then I tried it, I think I would like not like the way I feel.
The company I went with, it's a professional company. They're based in Santa Monica. And once I felt like, you know what, I think it's time. I was still a little scared. I was still, well, no, not a little, a lot. I remember on the drive there, I was like, I hope I get in an accident. I don't want to do this.
Oh my God.
I don't want to do this. But once the company does it right, there's a bunch of plans. Everything's bright white colors and calming. You have like a little therapy session before, so you're into the right mindset, and then you do your journey. And afterwards, after I did a couple, I asked Analia, like, what do you think about me doing psychedelics? She said, you should have done this a long time ago. Yeah. Because working on yourself, it's hard. But I think when I tell my friends, if you don't work on yourself and the quality of life what you have now, it's gonna be like that forever. Yeah. So it's awesome that you're working on it. Yeah. And I thank you for coming, because I wanted to do this for a long time. Yeah. And I'm not sure. The first time I met you, we actually didn't really talk. I was, if I remember correctly, I was shooting with Tyler, and we went back to Classic. Yeah. And as soon as you saw Tyler, I'm not sure if you thought, I'm not even sure if you knew I was right next to him, but you walked up to him and you're like, hey, I want to come back. I want to train more. What I saw was somebody pouring their heart out. Yeah. And I was like, oh man, like, people don't really talk like that. Yeah. And so I immediately became a big fan. Thank you. And then once I actually found out you were a professional fighter, I was like, oh shit. I was like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna root for her. And we would see each other every now and then at Classic. Where else do you train?
Right now I train at 10th Planet Mission Viejo too. I do my wrestling there, and then I do all my striking at Classic. I train with Lou too over at Innovative. Do my strength. I will work with like Chewy at Raw Talent every once in a while. And like I'll bounce around from some like jiu-jitsu schools too, you know what I mean, just to like, I feel like the biggest thing that I've learned is like you have to go get what you need, you know what I mean, and that's why I came to Classic in general, because I was lacking striking. My jiu-jitsu and grappling was great, I was submitting people, but I was missing that like striking aspect, and I think Tyler is like one of the best, especially like in this area, like one of the best by far.
Oh,
you know
definitely.
What I mean? His teaching style, his knowledge, what he knows, how he coaches. So when I made my UFC debut and I won, and I subbed the girl, but I was like, I got to get my striking better. Like, you know what I mean? It's time to like totally. And it's so hard to balance everything. It's so hard to balance like, because before I was only grappling. Like I did some boxing with Aaron Tohill when I was like 16 or 17. But for a big chunk, I had no striking coach, and I did no striking. I would literally just like go into MMA fights, like training jiu-jitsu 2-3 times a day and wrestling like 3 times a week. Yeah. And that's all I did. And it was working, I was subbing people and stuff, but it's like, you have to be an all around like athlete, So it's hard balancing like all the striking, all the grappling, like, and there's different, like within grappling, there's like jiu-jitsu and there's wrestling, and then there's wall wrestling, and then there's like this, and then there's this, and then with striking, it's like there's boxing, and then there's kicks, and then there's clinching, and then it's like there's so many little things within everything. And then you got to have good cardio, so you got to make sure you're running, you got to have good strength coach, you got to be explosive, and it's like, holy shit, I gotta balance 10, and then you also need rest. Your body needs rest. Your mind needs rest. You can't just. I still do it sometimes, but I was a chronic overworker, like just driving myself into the dirt 24/7. I've been in the sport since I was 16, and like this is the first time in my life, or like in my career life, I guess, that I'm like taking time to like rest my mind and body, because I'm like, man, I'm only 23. I want to have a long future in this sport, and the rate I'm going, I don't have much longer, because I just mentally and physically, like, I have no, like, gauge. I'm, like, just pedal to the floor, like, go, go, go. Yeah. I don't know how to, like, coast. You know what I mean? I'm trying to learn.
But it is a lot. I remember when I first got into martial arts, I always wanted to be, like, a Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Ninja Turtle, Power Ranger, So when I was in the Army, I'm like, you know what? Now I have money. Let me go do the martial arts thing. I walked into a gym. I was super scared, and I remember thinking, well, I'm athletic. I mean, I'm in the military. I know what I'm doing. And first class, I was just like dead, right? I was so tired, and it's so much. And then I did boxing, Muay Thai, and then once I started doing jiu-jitsu, I tried to still train with Diego. I still tried to do my personals. I still tried to go do my boxing with Chewy, and start doing jiu-jitsu. And I kept it up for 2 weeks, and after 2 weeks, I'm like, I don't know how these pro fighters do this. Like,
Yeah.
I've been through some of the most intense training that the military has to offer. And I'm 2 weeks of this and I'm already done.
Yeah.
It's so much.
It's a lot physically and mentally. Coach Lou, he's been with me since I was like 16, and he'll tell you how much of a psycho and head case I am. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. It's so hard to balance everything, and like I always put so much pressure on myself. Like, everyone is working 3 times as hard as you. Like, that's what I always tell myself. So for me, I would like, but it got bad. It got to the point where I was training like 4 or 5 times a day, like not eating in between because I didn't have time to eat. Like, I gotta train. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? And it's like, bro, like, you gotta eat, you gotta sleep. Like, I used to not sleep. I used to literally, I mean, this was like a rough time in my life, so I was like going through shit. But I used to literally fall asleep at like 3:30, 4 o'clock, and my body would naturally wake up at 7 a.m. This was during my whole Corey mechanic camp. And I would get up at 7 a.m., start my day, like nothing. I would train 3, 4, 5 times a day, not eat anything, and I'd repeat and I'd repeat. So I'd have like no food, no sleep, and I was just like, you just gotta train, you just gotta train. And then pretty soon after that, my body was like, you can't do this, like you can't do it like this.
Yeah.
So I'm learning the value of like taking time off, because I'll do anything for my career and like my fighting. I love it, and I think right now what I need to do is like relearn the passion for it and like learn how to like, you know, take my foot off the gas, put my foot on the gas, like know when to listen to my body, because right now I don't know how to do that.
But you're super young, and the fact that you're already thinking like that now, you're gonna be okay.
Yeah. Well, my body and mind were just not. It's not that like I wanted to like take a step back and learn this. I just had no choice. Like,
yeah.
I couldn't even describe it. Like, my body, my mind. There were some points where like even my last camp, like I'd get home after like a long day of training and I don't remember any of it. I'm like, did I really do all that? Like, I'm like totally like mentally just like, I take myself out of my head so I can like just do it and not think about it. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, wow, that was a lot. Like,
so what do you do to get away from all of that, right?
Yeah.
What do you do?
I don't know. I'm still learning, honestly. I'm pretty introverted. A lot of people like don't like understand. Like, I have a lot of very social people around me, and it's like, I don't know. I just like I like being around like close family and friends, but for the most part, like, I don't know. I'm just like, I like being low key. I like staying home. You know what I mean? Like, I like to go out on the weekends. You know what I mean? Especially because like for a long time I didn't and I couldn't, because I sacrificed a lot of my like teenage years to like just train full time, and I don't regret it and I never will, but I definitely never like got to go out or experience going out. So ever since my last fight back in April, I've finally like, you know, I'll go out sometimes on the weekends and have more fun and like not feel guilty having fun, because like I was in camp mode from 16 all the way until like, you know, not that long ago. And I think it's good, because I think like you need to be focused and you need to be disciplined, but there also has to be like a balance. You know what I mean? Like a healthy balance for like longevity at least. I mean, if I want to retire next year, then I got to get my shit going. But it's like if I want to be here when I'm like 28, 29, 30, like I got to learn how to like have balance and, I don't know, more control over like self-control rather, I guess.
So what sparked everything? 16?
My parents split, and I remember seeing Ronda Rousey fight, and I had hated fighting. Like, my parents and like our families, we would always go to fight parties. We'd watch like Chuck Liddell. We'd like watch GSP. But I always hated it. I was always like, this is so stupid. Like, what? Like, we all got to get together to do this? Like, we can't just watch this at home, you know? But then when I was like 15 or 16, I saw Ronda fight. And I was like, oh, shit. Like, I didn't know girls did this. Like, that's kind of cool. Like, and it's weird because I've never been a confrontational person, especially growing up. Like, I grew up in like, at least like in my early childhood, my grandpa was a pastor. So I grew up in churches for the most part. And then I was always like pretty quiet. I was a straight A student. I was an AP student. I was playing softball competitively. I wanted to go to Harvard to play softball. Like, I had aspirations, like big softball aspirations. And I saw Ronda fight one time. It was a Betchkohea one. It was like literally like 1 or 2 days before my 16th birthday, I think. And that was it. I was like, the next week I was at a gym. CSW was the gym I started at. And that next week I was in the gym and I never left.
And when did you meet Coach Lou?
When I was like about a year after that. I was at CSW for like a year, maybe a year and a half. And then I went to 10th Planet Buena Park. It was 10th Planet Buena Park at the time. And Lou was there, but he was just training. And then we eventually were like coaching a kids class together with a couple more people. And then when I was like 18, I want to say, that's when he started like teaching strength conditioning and like holding classes. So I would go to those. And then when I was like 19, that's when he started like being more independent. And like he got like, I think he went to, was it Apex? I think was his first one. I think it was Apex. And then that's when I like started with him like full time. But I've been with him. I've known him since I was like 16 and a half, 17 maybe.
Yeah, and so Coach Lou's your strength and conditioning coach, and I tell guys all the time to get a strength and conditioning coach, if you can. And me coming from special operations community, we have all of these things for us, right? We have registered dietitian, strength and conditioning coaches, physical therapists, even mind coaches and stuff like that. And guys don't want to use it because they're like, oh, I'm a Ranger or I'm a SEAL or I'm a Green Beret. I can do it by myself. And I had to learn that the hard way. I got hurt in Afghanistan. When I came home, I thought I was better. I went to Ranger school, and you get hurt over there. You it's a suck fest, right? And when I came back, those injuries were back, and I'm like, man. And I remember being in the shower, and I couldn't even hold up the Head and Shoulders water bottle. I mean, not water bottle, shampoo bottle. I'm like, oh, man. I was like, man, my shoulder's fucked up again. I'm like, so I was like, okay, I guess I'll go see the physical therapist. And they're like, yeah, you're hurt. We have to rebuild you. And the exercise they were making me do, like really weird and funky. Like, have you seen the one where it's like it's not a tube, it's like a big old stick, and then you have a handle in the middle, and then you're supposed to shake. Right?
I know what you're talking about.
So I was doing that, and then I'm like, this is so weird. This is not going to help me. And one day they're like, okay, now you can go to a strength and conditioning coach. And I'm thinking, like, I'm a Ranger. I know how to lift. I don't need this.
I'm already strong. What are you talking about?
I don't need this dude to tell me how to lift. And then he would make me do these, proper lifting techniques at such a low weight. And I'm like, this is kicking my ass. And then it built me up stronger than ever. So I've always been telling people, like, yo, you have to, when you can, go to a professional. Like, they're a professional for a reason. I'm not saying you can't lift, but the reality is most guys have terrible technique. So when I decided to start lifting, that's why I asked you and I asked Chris, the Beast. I asked, like, dude, who's your guys' strength and conditioning coaches? Because I did Muay Thai, and I hated that I had to be the smallest that I could, because I was always hungry. I fought at 132, and I'm always trying to be light, stay light.
Walk around weight, or low in weight,
and then so at jiu-jitsu, I was like, well, I can compete at 154. I'm like, now I can actually start lifting again. But I needed help, because I tried to go to the gym, and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
I don't know what I'm doing.
So with Coach Lou, it's been a game changer.
I feel like people underestimate like the proper technique of stuff and mobility. I think people underestimate mobility a lot, because there was a point in time where it was like around 2021. I actually had a fight scheduled for February of 2021, and I had to pull out. I was going through like eating disorder stuff, like not eating, overworking my body. I was super inflamed, and I actually went to the UFC PI, and like they ran a bunch of blood work, and they were like, you're severely anemic, you're vitamin D deficient, like basically all your levels are fucked. So Lou, they were like, you should not train at all for like months. Like you need to recover, you need to reverse diet, you need your body to rest. But I was like used to training 3, 4, 5 times a day. So I would go to Lou's once a day when I couldn't train. And the shit my body was going through was so crazy. Like my body had forgot how to like carbs. I was like on a no carb diet for so long, because in my head I was like, carbs are bad, like they make you fat, like, you know what I mean? Like, so just a horrible relationship with food. So like when I was like reintroducing carbs, like it affects like everything, like the way your body processes them, like it forgot how to break down carbs. So like when I say like I was like everything that was bright, like everything was too bright to me, like my eyes would hurt, like everything was sensitive, my hearing was sensitive. So it would get so bad like that Lou, I'd go to Apex and he'd have to like turn down half the lights, and like they had like the little ceiling windows, so it was like bright enough, but it's like he would turn off the lights and he'd just make me do mobility for an hour, just straight mobility. And I had no T-spine mobility, no ankle mobility, like no hip mobility. And for like 3, 4, 5 months, that's like all I did. And now like I'm so much stronger now, like now that I can move, you know what I mean? Now that like my T-spine can move and my hips can move, like you become so more athletic and so much stronger. And then now you have proper form, because you're not compensating for like your hips not being mobile.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's such a big deal, and people don't think anything of it. They're like, I'm
It's
not doing that
because
mobility
it's not
shit.
sexy. It's not
Exactly. It's not something you want to post on Instagram that
Yeah.
makes you look strong or powerful, but it's like, it's such a, like, it's a big thing. Like, stretching and mobility is like, it opens up like what you can do by so much. And people don't, I don't know, like you said, it's like, I think a lot of things right now are like, what can I post to look cool?
Yeah.
So it's like no one wants to post them stretching. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
well, now I am. Watch.
Yeah. No, I am.
Well,
but it's such a big foundation that you need to have.
I was honestly thinking of doing not necessarily just a video of stretching, but people always ask me like, what do you do? Because I see you spend some time in the military and you're in the martial arts world and you skate. Like, how does your back not hurt? Because all veterans are like, my back hurts, my knee hurts.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, but you have to work on flexibility and mobility. Because I used to have like serious back problems where I thought I was fucked. Right?
Yeah.
I was 24 and I thought I was like, I'm screwed for
That's
life.
it. Yeah.
That's it. I used to have to put a pillow in my car to drive, and I couldn't. Sometimes I couldn't even like touch my feet to tie my shoes.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck. I'm so fucked. But I'm like, okay, so this can't be it. So once I actually went to go see professionals, and they made me do stretching, foam rolling, and all that, I'm like, oh, you. And then
And it's hard to find a good PT person too.
it is.
Like, because before I did my stuff with Lou, or even like when I was working with Lou, I would try to go to some PT people, and like I only found one good PT girl, and she was all the way in freaking Torrance. So during like all my camps, I would drive all the way to Torrance in the middle of the day and all the way back just for that, because I've worked with so many PT people that are like, what are we doing? Like, this is not making me better. Like you said, like the stick where it's like, I'm like, is this really helping me? Like, so even that in itself is hard, is like finding a good like PT person that actually helps and you see like a difference.
No, it is. But I'm gonna post it. I know it's not. But I never started being Instagram to post like what was the coolest stuff. I just started sharing,
which is how it should be. Yeah.
And then that's how people were messaging me like, hey man, no offense, but like, you're small, so how did you make it in special operations? And I would tell them, well, yes, you have to pass the physical requirements, but it's more mental than anything.
100%. And
I find myself to this day still answering that question, because people are like, how do you do it? Well, it's your mindset.
Your mindset. Yep.
Yeah. And so that's how I started getting to social media. And one day, one of the guys asked me, he's like, you know, you have a lot of people watching what you do, and they look up to you. I was like,
isn't that a weird thing to like think about?
It is.
People tell me that too, like, oh, there's like, and then I'll look and I'm like, if you look at how many people are following you, and then how many people view your page that aren't following you, that just like look at your page, like it's a weird concept to me. Like, everything you're posting like has an impact on someone, whether it's good, bad, like whatever. Like, they come across your page, like just random people everywhere.
And I know not all people think like this, but I feel like we have a responsibility to do it right. So that's why I when I would talk about the problems I was having with PTSD once I got home, or doing the psychedelic therapy, because things weren't that great. Instead of I could have easily just showed all my deployment pictures and combat videos and got millions of likes, but that's not
viral from it.
That's not the reality. There's war, but there's also other stuff. And then plus, I'm not just a veteran. Kind of like, you're just not a fighter. Yeah,
it's a really hard balance for me too. I mean, I'm sure it is for you, but I don't know. I get caught between like people are following me because I'm a fighter, so I'm only gonna post this, and then it's like, no, but I want to post this, and like, I think I look good in this, so I want to post it. And then I'm like, no, you can't do it because you're a fighter, and that's not what people want to see. And like, I go through all this shit in my head, and I'm like, it's just a fucking picture. Like, I'm like sitting there staring at the picture, like, should I do it? Should I not?
Post what you want.
Are people gonna get mad? Are they not gonna want it? Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, it shouldn't matter. Like, post what you want. But it's so hard when it's like you're using your platform for like a job or something, or like you have like a role that you've put yourself in. Like, I'm a professional athlete, so now I have to hold myself to that standard. So now if I post a bikini pic, now people are gonna think that I'm not a good fighter, and now I'm gonna get shit about. I mean, I don't know how many comments that I got after like my loss in January that were like, maybe if you didn't spend so much time taking bikini photos, like, you would have won. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, that doesn't make any sense. But it's like, now when I post, I'm like, do I want to hear that, or do I want to? And then it's too much. It's like, I get to the point where I'm just like, I don't even care. Like, I just post it and like leave the app, and I'm like, I'm not even going on anymore.
Well,
like,
as it should. That's what you should do. Just post and don't even read or get to any of that, because that's what I did. Because because the page and how most people know me is through the combat footage, because it went viral. We got millions and millions of views.
Yeah.
And then I would share like a picture of me at school. You're like, hey guys, you got to use your education benefits.
Yeah.
100 likes.
You get like 2 likes and people are like, we don't want to see this.
Yeah, nobody cares.
Like, I'm proud of myself though. Like, what the heck?
Bro, yeah, you got to get your knowledge. Or, you know, and people hate on school because kind of like what's happening right now in the world. But look, knowledge is not... what's happening in colleges, if they're sharing a certain ideology, okay, that's, if you have a problem with that, have a problem with that, but don't have a problem with knowledge, with becoming a better version of yourself, knowing more about the world, you know, because like I went to school and had courses for microbiology, organic chemistry, biochemistry. I took all these classes. I learned more about myself, the world, and yes, was there that crazy stuff that you hear, like,
of course, that's everywhere though.
Yeah, that's everywhere.
That's on social media everywhere. That's everywhere you go. That's not just colleges, like, and it's like, I understand like where people come from with that, but it's also like everyone's a human. Everyone has a brain. Like, you gotta like believe what you believe and like agree with what you agree on. Like, you can have someone preaching something that you don't believe, and you could be like, okay, that's cool that that's your opinion, but I don't think that way. Like, and that's just kind of like the way the world works. Is like, I know people are young and impressionable, but it's also like you got to learn at some point to think for yourself. You know what I mean? Like, whether you agree with what a professor's saying or you don't, it's like you don't have to fully agree with everything they're saying.
But some people don't believe like that.
Yeah.
And then some people don't even get to the point of...
Yeah, but then they're miserable all the time. They're mad and angry all the time, and it's like, it's not worth it.
They're the ones who are writing those messages.
Exactly.
Flipping each other off in traffic.
Exactly.
But I'll never forget the time where I had to realize, like, I had to change my mind on something I believed. Like, for example, I love my grandma. And my grandma growing up was like, you have to marry Mexican and Catholic. And I would always be like, yeah, that's what I'm supposed to do. That's what I'm supposed to do. And then I remember one day I'm like, but what if I don't want to? Yeah. And I love my grandma. My grandma's taught me so much. But some people have a problem to admitting that they were wrong about something they thought. And I thought that. I remember looking at girls and be like, no, because you're not Mexican and Catholic. And then I realized, you know what? As much as I love my grandma was wrong. Yeah. And people have to admit that someone you love taught you something, but guess what? They could be wrong.
I disagree with a lot of things from like my family. Doesn't mean I don't love them. No. Doesn't mean I don't respect them. No. But like, you don't have to have the same beliefs as everyone. I mean, I think there are some beliefs that it's like they shouldn't be a debate on it. Like, politically, I don't understand why gay marriage is up for debate. Like, why do you care, are we voting on who gets to marry who? Like, that doesn't make sense.
Why do you care, dude?
Like, there's certain politics like that. We don't have to talk about politics, but there's certain politics like that I'm like, this shouldn't be a political topic. Like, you can have whatever opinion you want on it, but like, why are we trying to vote on it? Like, that doesn't make
it's really
doesn't
weird.
Make any sense. Like, who do you care who sleeps with who or who falls in love with who? Like,
but isn't it funny how some of, not necessarily only politicians, but people that are so against it and they take a lot of time and energy to go against it, turn to be fucking gay and just...
Well, yeah, because they're projecting and they're so mad at everything. And it's like, bro, like...
How many times does that happen already?
Like, take a step back. Like, I mean, I don't know. I feel like when... Like, I get being passionate about things, but I also feel like you have to be sounded in what you believe in. And it's like, I understand fighting for things and like fighting for what's right, but I do think people get a little too worked up about things all the time, because it's like, you're one human being. Like, with the country we live in, you got to vote for what you believe in. You could be vocal about what you believe in, but at the end of the day, like, what are you gonna do? Like, maybe that's like my generation's mindset of like, what am I gonna do? Because I mean, I understand I'm one person, but it's like, for me, I'm less concerned with like feeding into like politics and more concerned with like just impacting people around me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to try to teach my sisters how to grow up and work hard and be whatever the fuck they want to be and not care what anyone tells them. And, like, I'm more worried about them growing up or them not getting into drugs or doing stuff. Like, I can't worry about something one of the politicians who's rich as fuck, protected by every security guard you can think of, is saying. Like, I don't care what he says. I'm worried about what kind of women my sisters become, or, like, what kind of children I have and who I raise. Like, I'm going to impact who I can impact and control what I can control and, like, do my part when I can, you know what I mean, and give back when I can. But it's, like, I feel like if more people worried about, like, having a positive impact and being a good person to those around them, a lot of our problems would, like, kind of
definitely. But resolve. The thing is, you know, people want like a lot of things, they want their coffee now, they want their food now, they want their movie now.
Well,
So
I'm
they,
impatient as fuck, so
they
I'm guilty, but yeah.
they want change now.
Now,
But
yeah.
the reality is, you're not gonna change
Takes
someone's
time.
mind
No,
with a
yeah.
30-second video or a meme or something.
No, yeah.
It takes time. Like, I'll never forget. There was a guy in my unit, and he was like, "Dude, for a Mexican, you're not that bad." And
What?
in
What
the
does that even mean?
in the military, you joke a lot, right?
Yeah.
You with all the stuff that you see and you do, you use humor to kind of like
Yeah.
calm things down. And when he said that, I laughed. I was like, ah, ha, ha.
Yeah.
And then he said it again. And then he just kept saying it. And
You're
then
like, I get it.
Like, after a while, I realized this dude's not joking.
He's racist, yeah.
And it's happened around when and then his dad died.
Yeah.
And I can tell he was going through a lot internally. And one day he told me, he's like, you know how I would tell you, like, for a Mexican, you're not that bad? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, I wasn't joking. And I'm like, I kind of figured after a while.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, when around the time his dad died. And he's like, my dad taught me a lot, and I love him. But he told me that all Mexicans would come here and rape this country and abuse this country, and they don't care. They just want to take. And basically
my father was very racist.
And he was basically saying like he was wrong.
Yeah.
How did I change that dude's mind? Working real hard.
Yeah, just being you.
Setting the example and affecting that type of change. And to this day, it still happens,
Yeah.
Even at school, when I remember we had an American government class, and there was a lot of debates.
Yeah.
And I can tell people were debating through emotion, and I was just raising my hand and talking based off experience of the things that I've seen. Because I'm a big believer, if I can see it and I can touch it and it happened, then it's real.
Yeah.
So at the end, this guy, he walked up to me. He's like, I just wanted to. He's like, I know the semester's about to end, but I wanted to tell you that it was an honor and privilege to have you, to be part of the class with you, because you made a lot of good points. And I remember when you first talked, I remember thinking I didn't want to listen to you and I didn't want to hear you, because I thought most veterans were a certain way. I thought you were going to be loud and angry and not take anything serious, and you contributed a lot. And how did I change that guy's mind? Not as a Mexican, but as a veteran.
Yeah.
By setting the example.
Yeah. A lot of stuff is just the way people are raised, unfortunately, too. Like, I mean, you're not responsible for the way you're raised, but you are responsible for, at some point, you have a brain to think for yourself, and you are responsible for, like, realizing the rights and wrongs eventually. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I said, my father was very racist. He was in prison a lot, so he, did the whole, like, race thing. I don't know much about it, but so he was always very racist, but I was never. Like, I always grew up, most of my friends weren't white. I grew up in, like, La Mirada, Norwalk. Most of my friends were Hispanic, you know what I mean? Like, I had some white friends, but it's like I never saw, like, a difference. Like, I never, like, saw someone who was, like, Hispanic and was like I am, like, more superior than them, and they are, you know what I mean? And it's like I never understood, like, I don't know. Like I said, I get, like, people are raised a certain way, but, like, I don't know. My father was super racist, and I'm like, I feel like if you have a brain, you eventually are like, wait a minute, like, these are just people like me, like, and, like, I can be a piece of shit sometimes, and so can they, you know what I mean? We're just human beings, like.
And there's bad people everywhere. Like, I tell people, look, man, just because you're a veteran doesn't make you a good person.
Nope. Yep.
So just because you did this or that, because, like, that's why I liked war. It's horrible, but one of the things that I liked is that none of that stuff cared. I went to war with Muslims, with Christians, with, like, not fight them. I'm talking, like, they were on our team. People who didn't believe in anything, people who came for money, didn't come for money, people who were gay.
Completely different backgrounds.
And nobody cared.
No.
Because at that point, we were worried about our lives, life and death. But then it's funny, once I came back here, how now all of a sudden that stuff matters so much.
Yeah. I mean, I feel the same way with martial arts. You know what I mean? Like, you bond so much through, like, you literally sweat, bleed on each other. Like, and you don't care. I don't care if someone's orange. I don't care what color they are. Like, I don't care. Like, I mean, you create that bond, and it's like, you realize, like, everyone's just trying to make it. And I think that's the biggest thing is, like, everyone's just trying to make it. Everyone's trying to, create a better situation for their family. Everyone's trying to be successful. Everyone's trying to make money. Like, everyone's trying to just survive and make it in this, like, fucked up world. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't see why any of that matters. And I mean, I know it's a generational thing, and, like, we're finally at the point to where I think, like, stuff like that is, like, going to be slowly fading out, just because, like, if you talk to anyone, like my little sisters, they're like 13 and 14, like, they are the, like, least, like, they see no color. They see no color. They see, like, no religion makes them different. Like,
Yeah.
and I feel like we're finally getting to generations that are, like, taught that. You know what I mean? And now, like, social media is such a big influence on kids, too. Like, my sisters are 13 and 14, and they're always on, like, you know, TikTok, Instagram, and it's, like, yeah, it can be bad. You know what I mean? Can have bad implications, but I also think it can have, like, really good implications. And, like, the knowledge you learn off of, like, social media, and, like, you can relate to people that are all the way across the world that you have nothing in common with, but you can relate because they say something on anxiety, and you're like, whoa, like, I feel like that every single day. And then you can learn, and, like, you know what I mean? I feel like it's a good tool. It could be detrimental, obviously. You always have a phone in your face, but I also feel like there's a lot of, like, knowledge and, like, actual real life stuff you can gain off of social media.
I agree, because like most of the work that I've done is through social media, and because of social media, and I tell people, like, look, man, social media, could it drain your life and it'd be horrible? Yes, but you can do great things, meet great people, and it's a tool, and it's all dependent on
just depends on how you use it.
On how you use it.
Yeah, I love TikTok personally, but I could scroll for hours on there. It's so bad.
I tried TikTok, and, like, okay, maybe I should use this to help me with what I'm doing. Yeah. And then I realized I'm not gonna make a bunch of dance.
No, I just like scroll. I like scrolling TikTok, but it took me. It had to grow on me. My sisters over for a long time were like, "Just get it," and I was like, "No, like, it's a kids app." And then I finally got it, and I was like, "It's actually pretty entertaining." But it's cool because, like, you know, I see some things that, like, I can relate to as a kid growing up, or, like, instances that I've, you know, gone through that, like, you think you're the only one who goes through those kind of things, like family trauma, like, just stuff you've been through, and you realize, like, oh wow, everyone's fucked up. You know what I mean? Like, that sounds bad, but it's like everyone has something they're going through or that they've went through, like, for the most part. You know what I mean? And it's like, we were talking about this earlier, it's like, it's crazy how you can, like, literally see someone and you could talk to them and they seem perfectly fine, but they have, like, this health crisis, or they've been through this traumatic stuff that you're like, whoa, like, how are you functioning? How are you okay? And, like, everyone just knows how to cover it up. But something like social media, it can be easier to share, I feel like, because, you know, you're on a screen. You're not, like, actually talking to people. So it's like, if you make a video and then you can post it, you can put your phone away, you can ignore it, and then, like, it's easier to, like, share things without, like, actually having to do it.
Oh, definitely. No, I agree. And that was a decision I had to make once I started being open about PTSD and stuff like that, because
it's hard being vulnerable.
It is. And in special operations, like, no one talked about it. Like, nobody talks about it, right? Like, we all went to war, we came back, and your friends died and stuff like that, and you just had to
don't talk about it.
Don't talk
you
about
don't
it.
feel a way
Emotion.
about it.
But it's like, we're not gonna talk about this, like, and share, and, like, we're not act like we have issues and stuff like that. So when I started,
it's part of playing that role. You just gotta play the role, and it's like, but I'm a human being. Like, I know I'm playing a role, but it's like, I got feelings and shit too. Why does no one talk about it?
So when I started sharing, I would get backlash. But I'm like, no, I think if it helped me, I think it'll help. If it helps one more person. And then now at this point, it's more than one person. Because you can be hard and tough, but you can also love and show emotion and voice certain things, you know?
I mean, I feel like a lot of fighters think that way too. A lot of fighters think they have to be this, like, invincible, like, no emotions, like, warrior. And it's like, yeah, of course, like, when you're in the cage, you have to be like that. But it's like, we're still humans. And I feel like it's like, not a lot of fighters talk about, maybe fans don't care. Maybe fans don't want to hear it. But it's like, for me, it's like, I try to, like, tell my experiences. Like, I struggled with an eating disorder. Was it sport related? No, but the sport definitely gave me an excuse to do it. You know what I mean? Because I got to be in a certain weight class. So for me, I'm like, no, I'm doing this for my sport. And it's like, you know, I remember opening up about that and, like, some other stuff that I had been through. And I'd get mostly good feedback, but you'd always have those comments that are like, no one cares, or like, I don't know, like, this stupid shit, like, oh, well, you're weak if blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, I'm a human. So it's like, yeah, of course, when you know, this is the thing, is you have to know when to flip a switch. You have to know when, like, to get serious, when to get, like warrior mode or whatever you want to call it, like, but you're still human. Like, and I feel like so many people, especially, like, fighters, they, like, act like they're, like, invincible. And I'm like, yeah, you have to, like, be invincible or act invincible when you're fighting, but it's like, what about, like, regular everyday life? And it's like, a lot of fighters, like, we have this platform. Like, you fight and you have this platform of hundreds of thousands of followers and you don't want to use it. to like for something good or like to spread awareness. Like
Yeah.
you're already, as a fighter, you're already inspiring people to fight and want to like fight, whether it's like physically fighting or like in everyday life. Like you inspire people because you do something that not a lot of people want to do, and I'm sure you can relate. But it's like you also have this platform, so it's like, why don't you use it for something like that you're passionate about or something that you think is serious? You know what I mean? Like, because what if it impacts 10 people? What if it impacts tens of millions of people? I don't know. Like, you never know who it's going to reach. You know what I mean? I mean,
No.
yeah, you can just post, like, videos of you hitting the bag and technique videos, but it's like, what about you? Like, who are you? Like, what do you want to accomplish? Like, yeah, okay, I want to be a UFC champion. That's cool. But what do you as a person want to accomplish? Like, and this is something that I've had trouble with and I'm working on, is like, me as an athlete, I want to be a UFC champion. But what about me as a person? What do I want to do with that platform of being a champion?
Yeah.
A champion is like, yeah, like a lot of hard, like sweat, like a lot of time spent on the mats, like a lot of failure, a lot of building myself back up, a lot of like charismatic stuff. But like, what about me as a person? What about the K outside of fighting who has been through a lot, who wants to use their platform to share that story? Like, yeah, you can be a UFC champion, but what do you want to do as a person?
And you're actually working on that, right? Because to share more of it, because of the, you said the documentary that you're doing?
Yeah, I have a documentary coming out. I'm not supposed to share too many details, so
Okay.
I don't want to say I don't want to say who it's with or anything.
Okay.
But I do have a documentary coming out. Should be out in the beginning of next year, so I'm excited.
People do only want to see your fight stuff, right?
Yeah.
And people, like for my page, they only want to see the war stuff.
Yeah.
But sooner or later, I feel like the majority want to see the human being.
Exactly.
They want to see what makes K. So
Yeah.
that's awesome that you're doing that.
Yeah.
I know you can't share too much of it, and I don't want you.
Well, I mean,
to.
I could like share some of my story. I just don't want
Yeah.
to share the details of like
That's what I'm
the
interested
story.
in. Yeah.
It's deep. You want to get into it?
Yeah.
Okay. So when I was 15, right before I turned, or might have been right after I turned 16, my parents got in a huge fight and they split. Right. So usually when you're a kid, your parents get into a fight, you pick a side. You go to one side, right? I went with my dad because I was like, we'll be back like in a couple hours or whatever, like whatever. We never went back, okay? And my dad was a very narcissistic, like emotionally, physically abusive person. And when I was 16, we split, and then that's when the sexual assault and rape started. Mm-hmm. We were homeless. So from 16 to 19, we were homeless, living out of his truck. At one point, we got an RV, but then it got towed because it was parked somewhere where it wasn't supposed to be. But I was working full time. I was working construction, and then I would like be done by 2 o'clock. I'd wake up early, go work, and then I'd go and train full time during my whole pro career. And the whole time, I'm getting like sexually assaulted and raped by my dad.
Yeah.
So homeless, getting sexually assaulted, raped by my dad, and working full time, trying to be a full time athlete. Like, it was just a lot to process for like many, many years. And like, I didn't have a way out. Like, he had cut me off from all my family. I had no friends. Like, he was logged into all my social media accounts from his phone. Like, I couldn't make one move without him knowing what move I made, And like, for me, it was like training was my escape. Like, every time I like was on the mats or like, and that's why I was so active when I made my pro debut. I literally fought like so often, like bam, 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 because for me, I was just like, I got to get back in there. Like, I was just trying to ignore what was going on in my regular life because I couldn't control what was happening, and I was just trying to be a fighter.
How did you escape
it? I just kind of like, I mean, it was like the scariest thing I've probably ever done, but I just like, I left one day. I just like left. We were still homeless, but I had a car. I just didn't like drive it too much, and we had it parked in like a random parking lot near one of like my old houses because we knew like it wouldn't get towed there. But one day, I don't know what it was. We were like, I think I had to coach a kids tournament because I used to coach at 10 Planet Fullerton with the kids. And things were like really rocky because I wanted to leave for so long, but it's like I just didn't want to pull the trigger. It's fucking scary, you know what I mean? And then I was like, well, I have to coach this kids tournament. And he's like, well, I don't want to go. And then I was like, well, you don't have to go. Like, but he had never let me do anything by myself. Mm-hmm. And he liked the pool to like, fine, then fucking go. So I just left. And he was like, I can't believe you actually left. And I never went back. I was like, I'm not doing that. Like, that's it. Yeah. So that was my like ticket out, was like, and then thankfully he didn't have an iPhone. So like he didn't have like Find My iPhone or like anything. So like that was like the only thing that like saved me, was like And then eventually, like a couple days later, I just camped in my car for a couple of days, and then I had talked to Andy, the 10th Planet Fullerton guy, and I had crashed there for a couple nights or whatever, and then I eventually just called my mom and was like, all right, I gotta come back, because me and her had like no relationship, because he had like cut me off for so long that it was weird for me, like kind of coming back and being like, hey, like, can I come back? And she's like, I've been trying to get you back, of course.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of, you know what I mean? But he was just such a, like, he's a 2-time felon. Like, and this is crazy, is like, I went to the police about it when I was like 21 maybe. And they were like, do you have any evidence? And I was like, how the fuck am I supposed to have? I mean, and this is what I said. I was like, look, you can ask anyone from the outside looking in that it was an abusive. Do I have rape evidence? No. How the fuck am I supposed to have evidence of that? But if you ask anyone who was around us for any time, like when I went in the gym, I would literally look down, go train, leave. Like, I talked to no one for years. Like, when I was at like 10th Planet, I didn't talk to no one for years until finally I escaped that situation, because I couldn't have any friends. So I was like, why am I gonna build a relationship when I can't even have any friends? Like, I can't have friendships. Like, so I would just like, I had like no friends or anything, but yeah, so that's my crazy story. So that's what the documentary is about, kind of going in detail about all that. But it's scary, and that's like the thing about like the platform is like, I don't know what I want to do yet necessarily. Oh, but I was talking about the police. So when I went there, they're like, do you have any like proof? And I was like, how am I supposed to have evidence of like 3 years of all that? Like, I don't have any evidence of that. So they're like, okay, well, what we can do is like, we can like talk to him about it and see. And I was like, he's gonna say no. Like, at this point, I hadn't seen him for like 1.5 years, I would say. And I had only told one person, one of my coaches, and that's the only person I had told. And I got to a point where I just exploded. I like wrote suicide notes, and I was like, because I hadn't told anyone, and like I didn't want to tell my mom, because I know she would bear the guilt of it, and I'm like, it's not her fault. I don't want her to like carry that guilt, you know. But I would. So one day, it was literally right after my UFC debut too. I like wrote suicide notes, and I was like, I was drinking and I was driving, and I was like, I'm just gonna drive my fucking car off a fucking bridge. Like, that's what I'm gonna do, because I didn't want to tell anyone any of this. Like, my biggest thing is I don't want no pity. I don't want like, I'm sorry you went through this. Like, oh my God. Like, I didn't want it to be like this big, like, I'm sorry for you party. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I'm still trying to learn how to process this. Like, I don't even know how to process, what to process, whatever. And thankfully I didn't end up going through with it. But I was like drunk driving, which was not very good. But that next day, I had went to the police, because I was like, all right, I got to get this out. Like, I told my mom finally and everything. But then I was like, now I got to go to the police, because he was still living locally at the time. I was living in La Mirada, and he was living in La Habra. I don't know if you know how close those are, but they're literally right next to each other. So I was like, and my mom had his location pinned, so like she could track him, but still I just never felt safe. You know what I mean? Like, every time I would see like the kind of truck that he would drive, I'd be like, fuck, my heart would drop. Like, you know what I mean? So I was like, man, I got to do something about this. So I went to the police. I had no evidence, and they never even called me back. They sent me a letter, and it was like just a printed out one, and then it had like checkbox of why they couldn't continue my case, and one said no evidence, and they just checked it, sent it, and that's what I got.
What police department is this?
So I went to the Norwalk one, because that's where like I lived in La Mirada, but it all happened in Fullerton. That's a whole nother thing. I went to Norwalk, told like a detective everything, or a police officer everything. They're like, okay, well, we have to transfer this case to Fullerton since that's where it happened. And I'm like, yeah, sure, I totally get it. It took them a month to get it over to Fullerton, and for Fullerton like to even acknowledge my case. And then they didn't even have anyone from Fullerton talk to me. They just sent me that letter of like, we don't have evidence. So what I'm guessing is, if they even contacted my dad, because I told them where he was staying and everything, if they even did, I'm sure that he just said no, and they were like, oh, well, what can we do? And it's like, but then I ended up telling his people he was staying with, and they kicked him out. So he fled the state, of course. So
he did?
Yeah, I don't know where he is now, but I'm sure he still pays attention, so he's probably going to hear this. But there's nothing I could do or whatever, so that's why I'm coming out with my story. Because I did a couple interviews during my last camp where I said, like, what had happened with, like, I said a family member. I didn't say who it was. Just because I was, like, not scared, but I was just like, I don't know, like, that's a lot of, you know, that's really vulnerable to do, to like tell the whole story. But I finally got to a point where I'm like, fuck it, like, I'm so done like protecting him. Like, and that's not what I was meaning to do, but it's like, I lived in fear of this man. Like, I didn't even meet him until I was 7. And then, like, now that I look back, I realize, like, how groomed I was. Like, how, like, and I just look back and I'm like, you stole my whole childhood from me. Like, even up until, like, I was 19 when I finally got out of that situation. And, like, he had burned so many bridges for me. Like, even Classic, like, I went to Classic once when I was, like, 18 or 19 maybe. I think I was 18. But I was getting ready for a boxing match on Roy Jones Jr., and I basically was like, hey, Tyler, like, I want to work with you. But my dad would literally tag along to every session. And basically, I don't even remember what happened, but, like, I didn't come, like, to one of the, like, Friday 11 a.m.s. And Tyler had just messaged me and was like, hey, missed you today. Like, where were you? And then my dad had my social medias logged in. So he opened the message. And he was like, why the fuck does he need to know where you were? Like, what is any of his business? And I was like, well, I'm new to his gym. I'm sure he just, like, wants to know where I was. He wants to work with me. He wants me to get better. Like, and then I didn't say anything. I went back that next Monday and Tyler was like, you just left me on red. Like, you didn't even say anything. Like, and I was like, I can't say, like, oh, well, sorry, my dad's logged into my social media. And like, so I kind of just felt weird, and I never went back because I was like, my dad was a very, like, insecure, like, hothead. And I was like, it was going to blow up eventually. And I was like, I'm not even going to, like. So that was the reason that I didn't work with Tyler at Classic earlier. And then that's why when I came up to him, I was like, hey, like, I want to come back. Like, I don't even think he knew that my dad was the one who was logged in and, like, left him on red. But I remember that, and I was like, maybe I'll just respond and say, he's like, no, like, he doesn't need to know, like, you have all these other training to do. And I was like, yeah, but we literally went to him asking him to help me prepare for this boxing match in, like, two or 3 weeks away. And I'm like, he just wants to help. Like, that's what we asked him for. And I was like, whatever. Like, one thing I've learned with, like, being in, like, an abusive situation is you got to pick your battles. You got to pick your battles. You know what I mean? Like, I lost so many good coaches and, like, burned my bridge with so many good coaches because I was like, I'm just going to get the brunt end of this at home, I guess, if I let this, like, continue. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I've done therapy. I actually went today early before this, but I've done therapy for a couple of years. I stopped for a couple of years. Now I'm back in it. I'm pretty self-aware, thankfully, and I don't know, I think that's from just growing up at a young age, but healing never stops. It never stops.
It doesn't, and it sucks that the cops said that. And I get it.
I understand.
They have things they have to
degree.
do, right?
Like, I understand you can't just, every girl who comes to you, or guy or whatever that comes to you and say, I got raped. You can't just put that person behind bars for the rest of their life. I totally get that. Especially in Fullerton, like, it's like a college town. I'm sure they hear all kinds of stuff. Like, but it's like, there has to be a better process because it's like, something like what happened to me, like, how would I have evidence? Like, how would I have evidence? Like, what, you think he videotaped it and I have that video? Like, you know, what do you want me to do? Like, and they're like, well, all we can do is ask him. I'm like, oh, that sounds, like, great. And then this was the worst part is they were like, well, would you be open to, like, they wanted me to do a phone call and, like, they wanted to wire it and listen. I hadn't spoke to him in a year and a half, and I just went on a complete mental fucking breakdown the week before. So I was like, no. Like, that's not, this is your job to figure out. This is not, like, I don't want to be a part of this. Like, I'm losing my shit. I was going mental over here trying to process everything that I've shoved down for a year and a half. Like, the last thing I want to do is talk to him. And they wanted me to call him and talk to him. And I'm like, no. But I don't know. He's crazy. He literally, on my UFC debut, COVID was like, we were in the midst of COVID, like balls deep in COVID. So when I had my UFC debut, it was literally like we had to stay at the hotel all week. We fought at the Apex. They brought us right back to the hotel. And we couldn't leave unless we were not coming back. So we were just like, it was me, Andy Ballmore, and then Erica. You know Erica, right? Yeah, we were all three. I had just won my UFC debut. I won a performance bonus. Like, I got a sub in the 3rd round. Like, I was, like, on a high, right? And then I get a text from him, and he's like, I'm so proud of you. You did so good. Like, I'm in Vegas right now. Like, I would love to take you to dinner to celebrate. Like, and I remember being like, he's here. Like, he's literally, like, he drove all the way to Vegas because he thought I would have dinner with him so we could celebrate my UFC win.
That's crazy.
And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I was, and it sucks because it took my moment. And I was like, I just spent the whole night like, well, does he know? Did he, like, follow the van? Does he know what hotel we're in? Like, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm freaking out over here because I'm like, bro, like, I have one of the best nights of my life and I got to worry about this shit, you know? And then that's the next week I kind of had my little, so that might have, like, pushed it maybe. But I was like, And
Oh,
like, number
probably
one,
did.
and number two, it was like in Vegas in the midst of COVID, nothing's even open. So
Yeah.
it's like, what made you, number one, what made you think I would want to even see you ever again in my life? For you to reach out, number two, and like number three, like, what is, like, I don't know, so many things wrong. But
Well, the good thing is you're not a little kid anymore, right?
no, yeah.
And you have plenty of people,
Yeah.
me including, that if you needed us,
I have a lot of people now. I
Yeah.
have a big support system now.
yeah, now you have a
thankfully.
big
Yeah.
support system, and
Yeah.
I for that stuff, like I
Yeah.
don't play
There's
with
no
that.
playing around with it. And
I
like
don't.
that's a
And I feel
zero
like
tolerance, you know?
yeah, and I feel like nowadays, I feel like people are fighting back more than
Yeah.
ever, and I think the
Well,
days.
social media is a great platform.
Yes.
Because when the cops don't want to listen to you, you blast that shit on TikTok, it gets 1.3 million likes, and you're like, now everyone knows, so
Yeah.
now your life is ruined. Congratulations. Like, and
Yeah.
I'm slowly starting to, like, I made a couple of TikToks, like, showing his face, and, like I'm slowly kind of, like, being comfortable with, like, because it's just a scary fucking thing. You know what I mean? Like, after everything I've been through, like, not even sexually, but just, like, physically and emotionally abusive, like,
Yeah.
very mentally, like, I don't know. It's a lot. So for me, like, it's big to, like, come out with all the details of it. And it's like, but there's a lot of people who are probably in a similar situation, like, whether it's not a family member, but whether it's a coach that's grooming you, or, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, you have those instincts as, like, a young girl when you start feeling uncomfortable, but a lot of times it's brushed away because it's, like, a person of power. It's a coach, it's an uncle,
Yeah.
it's a family member, and you're like,
It doesn't make it okay.
no, it doesn't. But you don't want to speak out because you're like, what if they don't believe me? And a lot of times, like, people don't believe you. You know what I mean? It's like, what if no one believes me? Like, what if, like, blah, blah, blah? Like, and it's like, it's scary in general. But it's like, maybe if I tell my story and, like, there's a 16-year-old out there as a coach who's being a little too fucking touchy, she's going to be like, wait, like,
Yeah.
maybe this isn't right. Like, you know what I mean? It's always people in power, whether it's just a dad, like, or whether it's like a coach or anything, like a principal, a teacher, like any position of power. Like, I mean, it's not only females either. Like, and I've kind of told my story to, like, a few people, like on social media and stuff, and, like, I'll have guys reach out to me who are like, when I was like 7, you know, I had an uncle who blah blah blah, and it's like, it happens to literally everyone.
Yeah,
and but no one wants to talk about it.
It happens to a lot of people, more than people think, and, like, you know, luckily it's even happened to within our family, and I've had to tell people within my family, because I got some pushback, like, look, just because they were family does not make it okay.
Right. No.
They're not part of the family in my book, that they shouldn't
Yeah.
be. And if, like, I have no tolerance for that.
No,
like,
and there shouldn't
at
be
all.
any for anyone. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's like, I don't know. And it blows me away to see shit, like, this is a little off topic, but, like, all of, like, that island shit of, like, with Epstein Island and,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
all that shit. Like, when I saw, I was just like, bro, like, what the fuck? Like,
That is crazy.
How do you, like, fly 12-year-olds out because you want to? That's
Yeah.
Those are kids. Those are, like, children. Like, I mean, even, like, I understand, like, say 16, 17-year-olds, like, we can look like adults, but, like, we're still children. But, like, when you have, like, a 10, 11-year, like, those are, like,
That's just a
you
kid.
look at that and
That's
you
a
see,
kid.
like, what is wrong with you? Like,
That's a kid.
that's, like, unforgivable.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me. Like,
You'd be
None of it
surprised
does.
how many times I daydream, because I have 2 little girls.
yeah. Oh,
Okay,
fuck.
how
Having kids is a whole nother book.
how would I do this and get away with? Because before I was an Army Ranger and all that, and people love me for what I do now, and then I was a criminal, and I believed in, even if you were to do dumb things, you should be smart about it, and I got away with a lot. So if I were to apply that to when I'm daydreaming, like, okay, how would I kill this person that
I wish
abuses
Cain
my...
Velasquez would have done it better.
And you know what?
I feel bad for that
Yeah.
motherfucker.
Cain-
because
Cain fucked up in the way that he did it himself.
Yeah.
If he had boys like me,
yeah.
we
what I
would
did.
had a certain conversation, and then it would have been handled.
Yeah.
It's too close.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
for something like that,
Yeah.
like, for example, the connection is too close. Too many
Yeah.
people know about it of a direct line.
Yeah.
So what you're supposed to do is you get someone else
Yeah.
to do it, and because so some of the things that because I've daydreamed about this many times of how I would
As
kill
a father,
somebody.
you had to kill someone. Yeah.
if I
If
you
you
know,
had to,
because there's more cameras than ever. Back then,
oh yeah, there's cameras everywhere.
When
There's
I
cameras
was
everywhere right here.
yeah, when I was selling guns, when I was selling drugs, and we were shooting at people and they were shooting at us and doing this, and there was cameras. Right now, every doorbell has one of those Ring cameras. So, but you can still get away with it.
Oh,
like I had a dinner with the head LA sheriff of so I walked up to him and I was like, my name's Angel Cortez, I'm a former Army Ranger, but before all that I used to sell guns and drugs, and his campaign manager's right there. All these people, this is Beverly Hills, all these people are like, what? So
okay.
I was like, yeah, I used to sell guns and drugs, and based on the political climate and what they're doing, it's making your job a lot difficult. Right now, I would call this the golden age of crime because of what's happening based on my experience. And as you can tell, everyone in the circle was like, what the fuck
is
just
going
happened?
on?
And he shook my hand and he's like, how did you, and you still became an Army Ranger? I was like, yeah. I'm like, because I was smart about all the things that I was doing.
Yeah.
And these criminals that are not getting caught, they're finding ways to go around, which is one of the biggest issues because I have a criminal mind. I can't help it. That's what I did, right? So they cover the license plates, they cover their face, and then certain things by standard. Like anytime we did shootings, I would have a protocol. I would tell my guys, I need all the clothes that you wore that day.
Yeah.
I need those guns.
Evidence,
Everything is gone. And I remember, I'll never forget, my friend had brand new Air Force Ones, like
You're
white.
Like, sorry, they
I was
gotta
like,
go.
and he was mad, and I'm like,
why would you wear those?
You know the drill, right? So you could get away with it. So back to Kane, I support what Kane did.
Yeah.
Like what he was trying to do.
I don't even.
But he did it wrong.
Yeah. Well, you have to definitely go about it better. I understand the rage behind it. Like,
yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
And like, for me, I mean, this is something I actually talked about this in therapy a couple weeks ago. Like, having kids for me is like a whole nother can of worms because of what I've been through. Because it's like, I don't know how I'm going to function as a mom. Like, knowing what people are capable of. Like, an uncle or this. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I trust my family. I trust my husband's family. But it's like, obviously, because of what I've been through, like, thoughts like that are going to come up. And it's like, how am I going to just leave my kid to babysit with the family member? Like, for me, it's just like, there's just so many fucked up people. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it could be someone you don't even assume. Like, I've had so many friends that I find shit, like, some stuff out about that I'm like, I had a teacher when I was in 7th grade. We had it was like a substitute teacher for like 3 months of the year, and he was 23. And they found out that he was exchanging nudes with an 8th grader on campus. And he was like the coolest fucking teacher you could ever. Like, he was a cool guy. He never was weird to anyone. And then you find out he's like 23, like having sexual relations with a 13-year-old, and it's like, what the like, how does this even happen? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, what goes through your mind to make you think that this is okay? Like, where did this stem from? Because, like, most people I know don't have thoughts like that. Like, okay, you're gonna have shitty thoughts. Okay, you're gonna look at a hot girl and be like, wow, she's got nice tits. Like, you're gonna have those thoughts that are like, aren't pleasant sometimes, or like, man, I wish I could just sock this guy straight in his face because it's annoying me. Okay, that's one thing. But it's like, to see like a 12-year-old and like be like, whoa, like, what happened? Like, you need help. Like, what happened there? And I'm like, I'm a firm believer though that trauma and stuff like this is passed down. From generation to generation. I am convinced that something had happened to my dad. I know that his mom, my grandma, had like really abusive boyfriends to her and to him. So I'm sure that it doesn't make it right. And that's why, like I even said before, what you have been through is not your fault, but it is your responsibility as a human being to stop that trauma. You cannot just keep passing that trauma from generation to generation. It's like, man, the last thing I want to do is produce 2 fucked up kids in an already fucked up world. Like, why would, like,
I agree.
You know what I mean? Like, you need to help yourself before you can like help anyone else. And like, people frown upon therapy, people frown upon this, and it's like they don't want to open up. And it's like, bro, I'll open up at any point. Like, you have to learn how to get all that shit out. You bottle that shit up. And like, I had an alcohol problem. Like, when I was like 18 or 19, like, I had a severe alcohol problem because I was like just shoving everything down. Like, I didn't want to talk about anything. Every time I drink, I forgot about it. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna drink because I don't feel all that trauma, and that, like, as soon as I get it out, I'm like, oh, maybe I don't have to drink. You know what I mean? Like, it just was like, you keeping it in and not talking about it. Like, I mean, venting to a friend is one thing, but I mean, therapy is not for everyone, but for me, I like talking to someone that, like, I don't know you. You don't know anyone that I know. I can tell you my most batshit insane thoughts, and it's not going to affect my life. None of my friends are going to know that I'm crazy. You know what I mean? No one in my family is going to know I'm manic and I'm a nutcase. But it's like, if you tell, I mean, I'm not a nutcase, but I'm being dramatic. You know what I mean?
No, yeah.
You can literally tell your therapist any kind of thoughts you're having or, like, responses you're having, and, like, it's a safe space.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, I don't know. I
agree.
It.
you have to work at it. Because if not, it's gonna destroy you, and you shouldn't.
And your relationships, and other people's relationships.
And you shouldn't let, because of fucking shit bad people did to you, ruin your life and the relationships that you have. That's why I realized, like, I had to do something. My mom and dad were physically. My dad would beat us, like, beat us all the time, and my mom would try to hide everything, and, like, it'd be summer, and she's like, you're wearing a sweater, and then I remember one day he beat us so bad that my mom picked us up. As a matter of fact, she's the one who dropped us off at his house. They were already split, so we can get beat because we were being bad at a party. That when we were going down the stairs, we're crying and throwing up because of the pain and everything, and my mom looks at us and she realizes, I can't hide it this time. So she called the cops, and the cops were taking pictures and stuff like that, and to this day I still have bruises from that, because those boom boxes that you can put batteries in, but you can also just take the cable. Well, that day he decided, I'm going to take the cable, and that's what I'm going to use. And then my mom would tell us that we ruined her life and stuff like that. And my parents aren't who they are now. They worked real hard to change. And then me realizing, when this is happening, my parents are 20. We're grown ass kids, and they're 21, 22, right? So I realized, like, I have that behind me. I have all that shit from war that I bottled up. From washing people's brains to off the truck so the younger guys don't see it. Me being the older guy, I'm 22 and I'm the older guy, trying to protect the younger dudes from this, being woken up, by gunfire so many times, and the things I had to do. And I'm like, if I don't fix this, it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad for my kids. And I know a bunch of veterans hear this, and law enforcement, and it's probably similar to law enforcement. It's like, let's not act like we don't have anger issues, an alcoholic issue. We're not that great of fathers. We're not that great of husbands. And I realized, like, because I saw it in the military, there's so many dudes who are terrible parents. And
I think people like to use what they've been through and experienced as an excuse, though. You know what I mean? Because it's like, they like being angry and they like being miserable. So they're like, well, I've been through this and this, so I have the right. And it's like, I don't care what you've been through. You don't have the right to treat people like shit. That's not their fault. Like, it's not your wife's fault that you went into the military and, like, saw your friends die. Like, of course, I'm sure she has sympathy for you. And, like, of course you're going to have anger and you're going to feel, like, emotions that she's not going to understand. But, like, it's not your fault. Just like with me, it's like what I've been through. Like, I've learned that, like, just because what I've been through doesn't mean I could take that out on my husband when I interpret something that he says wrong because it triggered me for something. And he's like, whoa, I did not mean it like that. And, like, I have a trigger because of what I've been through. Like, that's not fair to not work on myself and to have that, like, projected onto someone else.
Oh, I agree.
You know what I mean?
And once I had kids, I realized, I looked at them, and just, they're so innocent. They have a lot to teach you. And I'm like, I can't fuck these kids up. I have to. If I'm just the complete opposite of what my parents were, I'll be an okay dad. And you see me with my kids, and especially with my girls, because I talk to my wife, and she, her dad, she has something going on with her dad. He was never there, and just like how my dad wasn't there, I was like, so I look at my girls. I know that they love my wife. But I know at the end of the day, like, they have this certain love for me because I'm the protector. Dad. I'm the protector. So I have a huge responsibility because and then I have a son. I know that how he sees me treat women is how he's going to. Being a parent is such a scary responsibility. I mean, you're a parent, so you know, but just the thought of it for me is like, holy shit. Like, there are so many shitty women and men that it's like, what if I raise, like,
a shitty man who beats a woman, and now I feel like, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
such a big responsibility. Like, I don't know. They always like, they wonder why like people are having less kids these days. Like they say like my generation, like you guys aren't having kids, and it's like, it's scary. Like having kids is so scary. Like I want to make sure I'm like right in the head, because like raising a functioning member of society, like just like emotionally healthy person, like, you know what I mean? Like it seems like, not that it's hard to do, but it's like everyone you see is fucked up in some kind of way, and it's like it all stems from how you're raised usually.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And to me that's like, damn, like I'm gonna be responsible for that. Like,
Well, I don't think there's such thing as a normal person,
well,
but a balanced
yeah.
individual.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
Some people are like, when I have kids, I want to have kids like yours. I'm like, you don't have kids like mine. You make kids
Yeah.
like mine, and you have to worry like, how do your kids eat the vegetables? I'm like, because I had to grind it out months after months, and then like I would, not me, I don't cook. And Aaliyah would cook.
Yeah.
They wouldn't eat it.
Yeah.
And she would then cook it again the next day. They wouldn't eat it, and
They
then
finally learned like, I gotta eat this or I'm not gonna eat.
well, not just that, but they saw their mom and dad eat it, and
Yeah.
and then the little, maybe they nibbled at it, and then now my son's like, oh, you didn't have your vegetables, and I'm like,
you didn't eat enough of your vegetables.
yeah, I'm like, oh shit. And
Do you find it easier to raise boys or girls, or is it like just different, or is it the same? I've always said I want a son if I have a kid, but I think that's just because I fear like having a daughter and knowing what some women have to go through and like what we have to hear and stuff. But
I think
that's also just my past talking.
I agree, because in my past, I was like, I want a boy, because my dad was he didn't show emotions or anything like that. He just, he cared about the boys, right? So I was like, oh, I want a boy. And then when I had a girl, that was a game changer, because I realized like I have to protect my son, but I have to protect my daughter, and I have to raise her right, that she can do whatever the fuck she wants. It's just because she's a girl doesn't mean she can't do it. I want her to be independent. And then on the other side, I make my boy do, like girl stuff, like you have to do that stuff. There's no he
has to be nurturing, he has to like
all of that. I think I have more fun with my girls, because my boy, I love him, and my dad, I remember years ago, he was like, aren't you like scared that he's gonna get picked on? Because he was very loving, and he's very, and I want him to keep that. He's very affectionate, and he has his emotions. He can't hide them. Like if he's sad,
that's good though.
He's crying. So my dad
knows
would be like,
how to like express his emotions.
So then my dad's like, and I'm like, no, he's gonna be fine. And then I got him into jiu-jitsu, and like I told you earlier, I have a brother who's 1 month older than my son. And so my brother's Cruz. So Cruz would beat up my son all the time, and I would not intervene, because I'm like, he needs to figure this out. And then I put AJ in jiu-jitsu, and Cruz would, now when he comes over, AJ fucks him up. And
how the tables have turned.
But he doesn't fuck him up in a mean ways, because Cruz starts it. So then AJ,
he's like, I gotta do what I gotta do.
He's so sweet that he doesn't even submit him. He just puts him in a position
and, like,
where
holds him.
He's pinned, and he'll be like, get off of me, and I'm like, bro, get off of him, come on. And then it's funny, one day my dad was like, hey guys, you guys stop that. I'm like, now
stop it,
now
because he's losing.
So, and plus I knew my son was gonna grow up, and eventually I'm teaching him lessons. I tell him, I talk to him since he was little as a human being, not as a kid,
as a boy, kid.
Give him life lessons, and I knew in the beginning he wouldn't understand, but sooner or later it would start clicking. And
people have like this misconception that like you can't be like an emotional man and show your emotions, and like a masculine man.
You can.
They think that you have to pick one or the other. Like either I have no emotions and I'm like a manly man, or like I have emotions but I'm really weak. And it's like, that's not. Like, and then they think women find that attractive, and it's like maybe there's some women, but I feel like those women have like daddy issues in my opinion. Not that I don't, because I for sure do, but I'm like, for me it's like, if I see a man who is emotionally like unavailable and like I don't have any emotions, I'm like, whoa, like that's how my dad was. My dad was like, but when he would have emotions, he would like explode. You know what I mean? Just like the most violent explosions, and it's like, well, maybe if you like communicated how you were feeling on a
Yeah.
day-to-day basis, or when something upsets you, you're like, hey, you know, like, I don't really like the way this was. Like, there's a way to communicate things. And I feel like a lot of like, and it's like a stereotype that society's created. I'm not saying like men are just like this. Like, obviously that's something that like, it's a mold that society has like had men in for so long.
Yes.
But I think people are finally understanding that it's like, you can be emotionally available and still like a man.
That's why I
You know
like
what I mean?
what's his name, Patty, what he said in his last fight.
Oh yeah.
That was fucking amazing.
Yeah.
That he did that. That he used that moment to express that and talk to a lot of
Yeah.
guys, and that's why I felt like, you know, it's my responsibility to open up, because who's not gonna tell me I'm not physically, mentally strong? So
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck it. I
It's an insecurity for the most part if it's the opposite.
yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like if you're worried about other people perceiving you as like, not even just as a man, but like even as a woman, like people perceiving you as like not attractive or whatever, it's like that's because you're not confident or secure in like what you are.
Yeah.
Because if you know that you're strong and you're good mentally, then like you don't need other people to like think that you are strong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but I don't know. That's a human thing because I struggle with that shit all the time.
But before I forget, so then my son, he's super sweet like that, right?
Yeah.
And also because, well, I missed a lot of his life. I wasn't there when he was born. I was away, so he was more with his mom. So he has that sweetness that comes from
Yeah.
her, and I wanted to keep that. But I know as he's grown, because now he's 10, right? He's growing up. He's starting to see who dad
Yeah.
is, and what he did, and who he is. Because
Yeah.
like on the way to the gym, I'm blasting trap music, and he's in there, and he's like, well,
yeah.
my dad's
It's like,
been
what is this?
my dad's telling me not to cuss and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
he likes this music, and
Yeah.
and then he sees how I am. So I have fun, but I have more fun with my daughters because I want them to be tough. I want
Yeah.
them, and they are tough, and so I get to. It feels good to mold them in the way that I'm like, hey. I never tell them you don't need a man. I don't tell them that. What I
Yeah.
tell them is like, hey, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
You're physically and mentally strong, and because then I'm more present with my daughters, so
Yeah.
my daughters have more of my character.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Is your son the oldest?
yeah, he
Yeah.
is.
Okay, that's pretty
Yeah.
cool to have like the oldest out of three, oldest boy out of
Yeah,
three.
I tell
So he
I tell
can be
him,
like protective with his.
Yep.
Yeah.
I tell him, I was like, yo, you're
your
the oldest, man. It's your
responsibility.
responsibility.
Yeah, I always felt that, but like as a girl, obviously, but like I still feel that like the pressure of like the oldest sibling. Like I have a sister who's 19 and then 14 and 13. And I'm like, damn, like they're just getting into high school, the younger ones, and I'm like, you can't be like, especially with like the fentanyl shit, and I'm like, you can't be smoking anything, you can't
Yeah.
be taking anything, like, but the responsibility I almost feel like a parent, like I'm like, don't be doing this, like, and it's so bad, but I'm like, if you want to try weed, like, you tell me, like, I'll get you some, you can try in a controlled environment,
Yeah.
and like and this is the good thing is like my mom is super cool too, so it's like, if they're ever like at a party and they're like, hey mom, people are drinking here, but I don't know if I want to, like, you can call her and like tell her that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I think is also important because my dad was so strict and like I thought it was protective, but now looking back it wasn't. But he was so strict that like I couldn't do anything. So if I ever tried to do anything, you bet your ass I was trying to be as secretive as
Yeah.
possible. And it's like secretive teenagers and kids are so dangerous to themselves. Like,
Oh, definitely.
you can't just let them like run amok, but you
Yeah.
have to have those open conversations about drugs, about sex, about all these things. Because if not, like that's how kids end up pregnant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're hiding this and they're hiding that, and then you're like, well, you weren't even telling me anything, or like, you know what I mean? Like people like in LA when that like girl OD'd on fentanyl, like at her high school,
Yeah.
and it's like, that's crazy. Like that's
I
so scary.
I just had the sex talk with my daughter, and I didn't have it growing up. Mexican,
Oh, I didn't-
old
I
school,
didn't have it either.
Old school Mexican parents don't.
No,
they don't
we
believe
stayed
any
away
of
from that topic as much as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I took my son and talked to him about it, and he was more like he couldn't wait for us to stop talking about
He's
it.
like, please stop. This is awful.
and my daughter was more like, I feel like girls mature faster.
Yeah.
So she had more like legit questions.
Yeah. I think it's scarier for girls too early on, because for boys it's like you guys are like, this is gonna be fun, and for girls it's like, that's kind of like, girls are more emotional about everything. And they're like I had a lot of questions, but it's like I had no one to ask. Like my dad was so strict that I wasn't even allowed to take the sex ed class. Like he didn't want anyone teaching me about anything.
Yeah.
And for me it was just like, when you don't have that knowledge, especially as like a 14-year-old, like you're kind of like, well, this is even scarier now. Like, I don't have any knowledge about sex, any knowledge about drugs, any knowledge about anything. So it's like, it makes you like you don't know anything. So what, you're gonna like try to fit in one day and take something that you're not supposed to take? And like, when in reality, if a parent is open, you can be like, hey mom, like these people are smoking something and I don't know what it is and I kind of want to try it. As a mom, I'm gonna be like, hell no. Like, if you want to smoke weed, like you can smoke it in a controlled environment, but like, I don't know, especially now, like shit is so scary.
I talk to my kids all the time. I went to there's this DJ group. It's called Funk Freaks, and they do nothing but funk, and they do amazing work. Their shows are amazing. We've been to them, but I went to go buy some T-shirts from them, and my son, as we leave, and he's like, "Did you know they're selling drugs?" And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "I saw a sticker of the drug. Which one?" And he's like, "The plant." And I'm like, weed. Well, yeah, weed. And I was like, and then I had a long conversation with him about weed. I'm like, yeah, weed is a drug. I asked him first, I was like, do you think beer is a drug? And he's like, no. And I was like, well, it is. It's just a legal drug. Before, you used to go to jail if you sold alcohol or had alcohol, because back then alcohol was not legal. I'm like, now weed is becoming medically legal, but it's also, and for a long time it was illegal. And I told him there's some drugs that you see us drink at sometimes, right? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, and we're just having a good time. There's some drugs that people like to use socially, and then there's some drugs that are really bad that they destroy you. So I'm having that conversation.
And you have to have those tough talks. And I feel like not a lot of people want to. And like, I mean, don't get me wrong, like when I talk to my sisters about this stuff, like I don't want to talk to them about drugs and sex. Like, no one wants to talk about like the dangers of those things or anything, especially when it's like my little sisters are 13, 14. They're like, ew, that's gross. And I'm like, yeah, you think it's gross now, but like at least when the time comes, you'll have that knowledge, or like even if you don't have the knowledge, like to have the door open for a question. Like, hey Kay, like I'm at school right now in the bathroom and they're taking these, takes a picture, what is it? Like anything, like, you know what I mean? Because it takes one fuck up.
It does.
Especially for a girl, one fuck up, you're pregnant. Or one fuck up in general for anyone, like you OD. Like, like that, and it's irreversible stuff.
I tell
you know what I mean? It's a big like consequence if you don't know.
Oh, definitely. That's why I tell my son, you can tell me
anything.
Talk to me. We can talk about anything, And my wife she doesn't always agree in the way how I do things. And and so sometimes when he wants to tell me something, or my daughter, they wait until she's not there. And it's never something serious like
but as long as they have a outlet to tell it. Because I'm even like, I mean, not that I want kids anytime soon, but obviously like now that I'm married, I think about like, a future of having kids, and like me and my husband were raised very different, like not in like morality or anything, but just our experiences. So for me, I'm already like wondering like, well, I wonder when we have a kid and then we do come across this, like what's his stance going to be, like what my stance is going to be, like just because it's like you're two completely different people with two completely different set of experiences. Like my husband, he said when he was young, like he was allowed to like do whatever the fuck he wanted. He never did anything like bad, but like he'd be like, all right, mom, I'm gonna go skate with my friends all day. She'd be like, all right, dinner will be in the crock pot when you get home. Like, just the freedom. I was opposite. I didn't hang out with anyone. Like, I was treated like a professional athlete from the time I was like 11. Like, I played softball, and the way I went in with fighting is the way I was with softball. Like, I'm talking about like on the weekends I'm hitting balls off the tee. Like, I'm like doing weightlifting. Like, I used to be weightlifting at 11, which I shouldn't have been, but I was. Like, I was treated like a professional athlete. So our childhoods were so different. He's out having a good time with his friends being a kid. I never got the chance to be a kid. I was always like a professional athlete. So like now I'm like, well, now when we put our kids in sports, like what's going to be our thought process? Because my dad drained my love for softball out of me because he pushed me so hard. So now I don't want to do that to my kid, but I also want to push them hard enough to where they learn hard work. So it's like, I don't know where that balance is, and I'm sure it's hard, like learning how to co-parent, especially with a completely different human being. Like,
it is. And one of the things that I do like is that before we had kids, we talked like, what is your stance on this? How do you want to raise them? Like, I got beat, so if you didn't listen, then you got beat. So I was like, what do you think about hitting them? I'm like, obviously not how I got beat, but like, what do you think about that? You know? And if they don't listen, what do you think? Is it timeout? Is it taking things away? And then we talked about sports because I've seen that version, right? So many times where I'm like, dude, the kid isn't even having fun. You're taking the fun out of this. And but then you don't become you don't enter the special operations community, become the elite of the elite at killing by fucking around.
No, yeah.
So, but
it's
I
such
did
a fine line.
I didn't want to do that because I would see some rangers how they were with their kids, and I'm like, fuck. I'm not sure if that's the way to go. So I told Analia, I was like, how about we put them in things, and if they want to be better, we'll push them, but we will never force them. We will never take the fun out of it. And once they're burnt out, we don't get mad at them. They're just not that happy.
It just creates a lot of pressure as a kid. Like I felt that pressure, like especially with softball. Like the politics of softball are crazy. I had friends that were 12 years old verbally agreeing to colleges, and by freshman year, if you hadn't like talked and verbaled, because you can't technically sign anything until you're like 16, I think, your junior year, and by the time you're 14, if you're not verbally committed to a college, like you pretty much got the scraps. Like you're not gonna make it in the big of the big, and it's like that's a lot of responsibility as like a 12-year-old to hold. Like you want me to choose my college or start talking to colleges right now? Like I'm in 7th grade. I'm not even in high school yet. Like and like some parents are good about it and they're like, yeah, just keep going if you like, like let's see what offers you get. But like my dad was like, you have to be better, you have to be this, you have to do this. Like he used to wake me up at 5 a.m. when I was 14 years old to call colleges because they were on the East Coast and that's the time I needed to call them. Like, and it was just so much pressure. And it's like I used to love softball too, and I just grew to like I hated it. So for me, like I'm already like, man, when I have kids, like you said, to be anything amazing, you have to push yourself and you have to put in the work that no one else will put in. Yeah. But as a parent, how much do you push? You know what I mean? Like if your kid is like I'm so tired, I'm so beat. Like, and I see this all the time. Like even like when I go to like my wrestling program, there's some kids that like their parents will have them they wrestle at high school, so they do the wrestling high school practice for a few hours, and then they do weight room after, and then they come right to the 2-hour practice at our wrestling school, and then they got to go home and do homework, and they're expected to be a straight A student, and they're expecting to place in CIF, and I'm like, damn, this kid is fucking 14. Yeah. You really have them working out for 4 hours and another 2 hours and then another homework and then this and that. It's like, then you wonder why like your kids hate you or your kids like hate the sport that they do. You have to like push your kid, and I know like there's different kind of parents. Like some people are like, well, you can't be a pussy, and it's like, yeah, I understand that, but it's like I think people forget like you want your kid to be successful, but you also want your kid to be like a kid and to be like a person. You know what I mean? There's more to life than like being super, super successful. Like, and I know, like, don't get me wrong, like, I want to be super successful and I still have that drive. But there's some things that like I went through when I was growing up and the way I was raised that I wish I could go back. And I would sacrifice a little bit of like where I'm headed to get that like different normalcy in my childhood, because I feel like there's a lot of core things that I didn't get to like, not even experience, but it's like I didn't get to learn. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know how to be a good friend. I didn't know how to maintain a good relationship because I wasn't allowed to have those experiences. So I had my first like legit boyfriend when I was 19. And then my second boyfriend that I have now I'm married to. So it's like I'm still learning like how to have a good relationship because I wasn't allowed to when I was like 13, 14, like have a boyfriend, like, you know what I mean? Or like have a lot of friends. So it's like for me, it's like I missed out on a lot of like human core values that you need to know. Yeah. Because I was being pushed so hard. Like, and my mom was really strict on school. So I was like an AP 4.3 student all the time. And my dad was super hard on sports. So I was constantly like, if I wasn't doing schoolwork, I was doing softball. If I wasn't doing softball, I was doing schoolwork. Like I didn't have time to be a normal person. And it's like, once you're an adult, you realize like, oh shit, like my first relationship when I was 19, I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't communicate shit. When I felt like I wasn't getting stuff out of that relationship, I never said anything. I would go cry to my mom, and my mom would be like, have you told him this? And I'm like, no. And she's like, well, you got to tell him this. And I'm like, well, no, like I can't communicate that. Like I didn't know how to. Yeah. And it's like you have to learn how to do that if you don't do that like in your childhood. You know what I mean? Like, so there's so much more to being successful in life. And I feel like it's hard, like, as a parent, like, I feel like a lot of parents, like, try to live through their kids. And, like, that's what happened with me. And it's like, I'm sorry that you didn't get to where you want to go, but that's not my responsibility to try to fill the shoes you wanted to fill. Like, not even fill my own shoes or your shoes, but, like, you're trying to fill your shoes through me. And it's like, that's your job. That's not mine.
I agree. And because, like, in the highlight videos, some people, like, it'll be like, you know, was it Tiger, right? He's been golfing since he was a kid, and Mayweather, he's been boxing since he was a kid. So a lot of people think like that's what it needs to be. He needs to be from when he was a little kid, all day, every day. And yes, it worked for them, but that doesn't work for the vast majority of individuals. And then there's also people like Francis, who's like, oh, I didn't start MMA until 3 years ago. And now I'm the champion.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to rob someone's childhood from it. No. And I get it that parents might see that's what this.
They think they're actually being like a good parent, which I understand. Like, not a lot of it is like negatively done. Like, it's not like they're like, I know I'm gonna ruin her childhood, so. But I still want her to be successful. Like, that's usually not how it goes. It's usually like you look back and you're like, oh, like.
They're just blinded by the goal.
Exactly. But that's also just from, like, you got to do that self-work before you're a parent. So that way, like, you know not to do that. You recognize when you're doing that stuff. Like, you're still human. Like, you're not going to be a perfect parent or perfect in anything, a perfect husband, wife, whatever. But it's like, you still got to put in that, like, self-work. That way you can at least, like, take a step back and realize, like, oh, hey, I might be doing this. Like, that's how I was. Like, I have a lot of issues from what I've been through, obviously. But, like, abandonment issues, like, daddy issues here and there. So, like, I would just realize, like, I am very negatively reacting to a lot of things that are said, and I'm like, wait a minute, it's not what's being said, it's like how I'm perceiving and how I'm reacting to it. And I used to just react to it blindly and just like explode. Like, I used to just be a hothead. Like, I would just start a fight immediately because I was trying to protect myself and how I felt. And then I realized, like, oh wait, like, I'm not, like, it's not what they said, it's how I perceived it because of what I've been through. And it's like, now that's my responsibility to work through that and like talk to someone so that way I don't do that. That way when someone says something and it bothers me, I can be like, oh wait, what did you mean by that? And then they tell me and I'm like, oh, okay. Like, like my head thought something different, but no worries. Instead of being like, why the fuck would you say that? Like, how dare you? Like, that's how I used to respond. I used to just like start fights.
I'm glad you worked on it.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately a lot of people don't, and I see that a lot, especially in my community, right? Dudes go to war, they come back. I have no patience for dudes who or anybody who doesn't work on their stuff. Like, I'll talk to them because I feel like, hey, maybe you should go see therapy, or like, hey, just because of the past doesn't mean you should ruin the rest of your life. And once people don't want to listen, and or like, I'm pretty sure we've all met people that are never gonna work on their shit. For those people, I'm like, yo, I don't need you in my life because you're clearly not ever going to work on it.
I've definitely had friends that I've, like, had to, like, take a step back. Like, not cut off, but, like, just take a step back because it's, like, I'm working through my own shit, and I can clearly see that you have a lot of stuff that, like, you want to work on, but you don't want to focus on that, which is fine. Like, that's up to you. Like, I think something you have to learn as an adult is, like, you can't be, like, that person for someone all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I have my own stuff to work on, and I see you have your stuff to work on, and I'm not mad that you're not working on it, whatever, but, like, I got to take a step back because I can't be that person for you, But one thing I will say is, and I'm sure you see it a lot, is once you start opening up, people start coming to you and, like, feeling more comfortable with opening up, which is actually, like, a really good feeling, because I remember being in a situation, like, where I couldn't talk to anyone. I didn't feel comfortable talking to anyone, but now it's, like, I'm wondering now, like, if I had someone who, like, I heard opened up, maybe I would have, or, like, so I always feel like the more you open up, the more people will come to you and open up. And it's like, once we all start opening up, then it's like, okay, now we can all talk about our shit, you know what I mean?
Get better.
Like, exactly.
As a whole, as a community, society.
And that's where stereotypes end, is when you start, like, let's stop doing this stuff. Let's start working on it. And, like, I mean, and don't get me wrong, it's not fun. Like, it's not fun. Like, there's so many parts of, like, the healing process. Like, there's days where I'm just, like, mad at the world. I'm depressed. I'm mad. Why did I have to go through what I go through? What did I do to deserve that? I grew up a Christian. My grandpa's a pastor. You know how many days, and like, I would still consider myself a Christian. But you know how many days I said, fuck God. What the fuck? What kind of God would let me go through this? Like, you're telling me that God is all powerful, but he still let one of his believers go through something like that for what? You know what I mean? Like, I have days like that. I have days where I'm just like, I don't want to talk to anyone. I'm mad. I'm just mad. And it's like, you're going to have bad days like that, but it's like, it's what you do after those bad days. What am I going to, like, sit in my sorrows for a whole month and, like, you know what I mean? You got to feel it. You got to feel shitty. You got to get it out. You got to talk about it. And then you got to move on. And, like, it's a constant cycle. And it's not fun. putting in the work is not fun. Like,
No,
and I
it's
get
not.
it. It's not fun. You bring shit up, and like, there's been times in therapy where like I start talking and I say something that I completely like buried and forgot about, and I was like, fuck, that was traumatic. I forgot about that shit. Like, and then you spend the rest of the day like, damn, like that's crazy. But then like you get better, and you like once you get that out, it's like you feel better. It's not immediate, but it takes time, but it's worth it.
Maybe you gotta do some psychedelic therapy.
I don't know. That's so scary to me. Maybe one day. I gotta embrace weed again a couple more times.
No, I'm sorry. Like for all the people who love weed, no.
Do you like weed? Do you smoke?
No,
okay.
I used to smoke.
Yeah.
Yes, and then the last time I smoked weed, well, I didn't even smoke it. I ate it. It did me fucking super dirty.
Yeah.
This shit's too strong.
Yeah.
Hey,
yeah. I'm not even gonna retell my edible horror story right now.
It was so the reason. Well, I asked you because it made me think about, and then after you said your story, it made me think of mine. The last time I ate something, it was a brownie, and I don't know. I guess I was supposed to eat a fucking eighth of a brownie. I didn't measure, so I just kind of ate a big ass fucking chunk of it. Probably the whole thing.
Yeah.
I got so high. I got a DiGiorno pizza. I put it in the oven, and then halfway through, I was like, you know what would be good on that pizza? Eggs. And then I just and then I literally opened up the oven and I cracked 4 eggs on the pizza, let it cook. I ate it. My aunt saw me eat the whole fucking thing to myself. Went to sleep. I had to wake up at 7. I don't even remember hitting my alarm off, or maybe I didn't even set it. And then I woke up. It was like 8:30, and I was like, "Fuck! I have work. Like I'm supposed to be there at 7. I'm an hour and a half late if I go now." And then I woke up so high that I grabbed my shirt and I needed to iron it. And you know how you plug it in? It takes a while for the iron to actually get hot. I fell back asleep. So this is the bed. I fell back asleep, and then I woke up 45 minutes later with the iron in my hand.
Was it on?
Yes, it was on.
That's so bad.
And with the iron in my hand, the shirt was still wrinkly. I was like, fuck this. I put the shirt on, drove to work.
You drove?
Yes, sure enough.
Good.
I was so high.
Yeah, that's not good.
It was around 11:45 where I kind of felt like more of me, and I told the manager, I was like, oh my god, I was like,
I'm so sorry, but
I'd already been at work at that point for a while.
Yeah, okay.
And I was like, oh my god, I was like, I kind of feel like alive. I was so high when I got here, man, like extremely high.
He does me dirty like
and he's
that
like,
too,
dude, I'm high now.
Yeah. Dude, I'm high now.
And,
but it's crazy how some people like are functioning.
Yeah.
Like, I'm telling you, I smoke weed and I'm like, I want to crawl out of my body and go hide somewhere. Like, I feel so anxious. Like, I'm like, take me to the nearest hospital right now. I need to be seen by a doctor right now. And there's some people who literally get high and they're just like, they love it.
I don't have
that
that
gene. How
gene.
do you do that? I don't.
Whatever gene that is, I don't have
everyone always
it.
tells me, you're smoking the wrong strand. I'm like,
That's they all
no, it's
fucking
not
say.
the strand. It's just weed for me. Like,
No.
They're like, no, which one? It's sativa. And I'm like, I've tried all of them. I've tried both. I've tried one after the other. Like, I can't do it anymore. But
if of all the psychedelic things that you've heard, like I'm pretty sure people have told you plenty of stories, which one do you think would sound more appealing?
I mean, I think just microdosing shrooms.
Microdosing?
Yeah.
That's a good way to start.
I've heard of a couple of my friends that like recently have started doing it, and they like it a lot. They'll just have like small trips that aren't bad. You know what I mean? Like they'll just laugh at everything and like I don't know. Maybe I'll try it, but it would have to be in like a controlled setting. I don't know.
Well,
that kind of shit. I don't know what it is. Something about like not being full control of my body. And I don't know. I think society does like normalize the thought of drinking more, because like what you said is right. Like, I mean, drinking alters everything. You know what I mean? Like you get drunk and I don't have control of my body at all. But I don't know what it is. I feel like having like a mind and a body control thing is different, because I feel like I have a pretty high like drinking tolerance. So when I'm drunk, I'm still like here. Like my body might not be as like sharp, so like I won't drive obviously, but like my mind is like, even when I'm like fuzzy drinking, I'm like still pretty like I know what's right, I know what's wrong. I'm not like, oh my god, that guy over there is looking at me weird, he's gonna like all paranoid, you know? Like the minute I have weed in my system, I'm like, why is he looking at me like that?
Super paranoid?
Like I'm just super paranoid. Like everyone's looking at me, everyone knows I'm high, everyone thinks I'm a piece of shit, everyone fucking hates me, I'm a horrible friend, I'm a horrible daughter, like everything you could think of. Like, and I just can't do it. It drives me fucking nuts. Like, I don't know what it is. It unlocks something in me that I can't control my thoughts. And they're not rational thoughts. It's not like, my trauma gets brought up and like I can't deal with it. Like they're just irrational thoughts.
Yeah.
Like the police are gonna come right now because you're high and they know you're high.
Yeah.
And it's like they don't care if you're high and they don't know you're high. How would they know? Like they just know. Like no, they don't. Like, and it's stuff like that it's like it's irrational. I can't control my thoughts. Like why is my brain self-sabotaging me right now? Like why is my brain like telling me that like my neighbors are gonna break in and like, you know what I mean? I don't know. I've imagined some crazy shit when I'm high, and
I'm pretty much done with weed, but then again, I say that and I fucking go back to it sooner or later.
Yeah.
So that one story, actually, it was one more time that weed did me dirty. My friend comes, his name's Ryan, but Ryan, he's a former Army Ranger. Now he's in Washington. He comes and he's like, dude, I got this. He called it jungle juice, I think, or whatever. But it's shots of THC, right, or whatever, of this juice. And he's like, just take a shot. And I took a shot. And he's like, we talked for a bit, and he's like, you can take one more shot. He's like, are you feeling it? And I was like, no. And then I'm waiting for it to hit me. And he's like, you can take one more shot. And I forgot that he has such a high fucking tolerance. So I take another shot. And I become, after he leaves, then it all hits me. And I was doing this contracting work. I was gonna help what is it, Navy EOD get ready for their deployment, right? And I was supposed to be a role player, and it just happens that they were going to get attached to Rangers, and I was like, oh, perfect, I'm a Ranger, so I just got to play what I used to do.
Yeah, I've done that all the time.
So it was through this one company, and they contracted a bunch of Rangers, former Rangers, and I couldn't go to bed, and I remember thinking, the company is fake.
The company is
fake. The Taliban is trying to get me. They didn't forget about me. This is their way of getting me.
You. Oh,
and I went to their website, and this is a government affiliated company, so obviously they don't have like a really super high tech website. It's kind of like plain and boring. And when you
like
go on
IRS or something.
Yeah. And I was like, look at the website. It's fake.
It can't be legit.
It's fake. They're good. And I remember telling Annalie, I was like, I don't feel good. Like I don't know. She was just like, relax. I was like, no, the Taliban's gonna get me.
My husband recently had his own edible trip. He doesn't ever like do any marijuana, and we were at a wedding, and it was a pretty funny experience. He was just like, we have to leave right now, and I'm like, why? We have to leave. We can't be here. We go and sit in the car, and like, I don't know. I told him before, I was like, don't do it. Like, don't do it. Like, you don't know how you're gonna react, but. We both, neither one of us smokes or anything, because if we both did, we'd both be head cases. Like, it would be like 2 crackheads probably. It would be very bad. Like, I'll be like rocking and shit when I'm like high, because I'm so paranoid. It's like, it unlocks a level of anxiety in me that like, I can't control. I'm like, I don't like this at all. But I've heard that microdosing is good. I think, I don't know. I think if I ever get to the point where like, I need to do it for like my sake of healing, or you know what I mean, like moving on from the past or like something like that, I would do it. At the moment, I'm pretty like, I don't really see a point. Like some people do it for fun, but I'm like, I don't know. I'm pretty.
Some people do it for fun, and I do it for fun. But the way I got into it, and I just went for the healing.
Yeah.
Because I've done DMT, I've done ketamine, and mushrooms.
Yeah.
And it's more for the healing that I like, because I remember
it's like a lot of mental like
it's a lot.
What does it do? Like it just unlocks shit in your head, or like you look at things different?
Yes. So for example, the first time I did ketamine therapy, I thought I died.
Yeah.
I love the company. They know how to do it properly, and they made me feel comfortable, because I, just like you, have this problem of I want to be in control.
Yeah.
And the fact that I'm not. They told me, oh, yeah, you're not. You're going to basically go under. And I'm like, in front of strangers? Like, what the fuck? No.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I did it. They're great professionals. And they inject you in your arm. It's like a shot. And first it's just 25 milligrams. And I remember, I'm laying like on this comfortable bed. I got a weighted pillow. I got a face mask. And when they shot me, next thing you know, I couldn't feel my back to the ground. I couldn't feel the face mask. I couldn't feel the weighted blanket.
Yeah.
I only felt like my mind. And then like if they were far away, I could hear them. How are you doing? Do you want to go deeper? And I said, yes, a lot, please. and they injected me with way more. And I remember thinking, how long is this gonna take until it kicks off? And before I even finished that thought, fucking blasted, and to the point where I didn't know, I forgot what I was doing. I forgot that I was doing the ketamine therapy. I forgot that I was in Santa Monica. I forgot that I was surrounded by these professionals. I thought, I'm like, I'm dead.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. I died. I'm
was
dead.
It a peaceful feeling at least?
And I was calm. So as the level of intense rises, right?
Yeah.
The level of calmness also rises. You become more calm.
Yeah.
And I accepted it, and I wasn't scared or nervous or anything like that. And and I saw a bunch of shapes and colors and all that. But afterwards, what it came out of it, it was like the biggest thing was when I went home. I was so tired that I kind of just went to bed. My wife asked me like, "How was it?" And I was like, "It was good," but I was just so mentally exhausted.
Tired,
It also affects your body.
Yeah.
So then when I woke up, because my friend dropped me off at home, and then when I woke up, she was cooking, and I was like, stop, like, because now I have energy.
Yeah.
I was like, stop cooking. I was like, come over here for a second, and I told her, I was like, I realized we're about to hit 12 years married, and the version I've been lately is not what you got. For many years, you weren't even second, you weren't even third, you were probably like fifth or last. I never put you number one. I never put the family number one, and I'm sorry for that. And the look on her face,
she's like, whoa.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
And she said, there's things I wanted to tell you for so long, but I didn't want you to just hear the words. I wanted you to feel it and understand it. And I'm glad you said that. And then same with my kids. I told my kids that the two oldest, that I missed so much of their life. And like, yes, I wasn't away because of bad things. I was in the military, but I didn't know them. And I wanted to get to know them. And my oldest, him experiencing more of my military career, started crying and said, I'm happy that you're saying this. And I knew there was a separation between him and I. And
the ketamine like unlocked it.
Yes, and it brought us closer. So that's the type of stuff that healing, right? That healed my family, and it made us closer, but it also made me forgiveness. I don't think I would have forgave my parents if it were for that, and then so that helped me go down that direction. And one day I had dinner with my parents, and I told them that, and I came prepared, like, if they start yelling at me, that's fine. I'm doing this for me. So first I sat my dad down, and I told him, I was like, I forgive you for everything. And I was ready for him to just start yelling at me and cuss me out or just fucking leave. And I'd never seen that side of my dad. He sounded like he was about to cry. He made it like I did things wrong. I was raised a certain way, so so I thought that's how I had to raise kids. And I was drinking a lot, and because I was angry about this and that, and we were young. I had you when I was 20. And he talked to me like I had never fucking heard him in my entire life talk like that. And then same with my mom. And the quality of life that I had before psychedelics, to not just to do it for fun, but for the healing process, day and night. My life has been so much better.
Did you try all forms of therapy before? Like
yes.
Talking, like I'm doing my therapist, like, what is it called? It's like EDMR, EMDR, something like that. It's like I don't know, it's like healing by like, I don't know what it's called, but
what do you do? And I ask, what do you do? Because I've done so much. So what is it? What is that?
It's EMDR. So it's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy. I just started with her not that long ago, so I'm still like learning what it is. But I was just asking if you ever done it. It's
what do you do?
I don't know yet. We're still diving in. That's why I was asking, because I still don't know. We're supposed to dive in today, and then I was like, she was like, it's gonna be kind of deep, and I was like, well, I got a podcast after this, so I need my brain to function. I was like, I need my brain to function, and she was like, all right, we're gonna do that next week, though.
Okay.
So we're like diving into like the type of therapy, because this is gonna be like our 5th or 6th session, so it's just kind of like digging right now and like getting everything out, and then we're gonna start next week.
I've done everything. I mean, well, just about everything. I've gone into where I talk to somebody, right, who is not a veteran. I've done it with someone who is a veteran. I've talked to a woman because I thought it'd be maybe easier. I've talked to a male.
See, I've never talked to a male.
I've done where they meditation, where they guided meditation. I've done where they like really weird. I guess it's a type of therapy, but people, I didn't like it. It was kind of weird. We talk, there's noises, you hum, and then you talk about you breathing in, breathe out, and then like, what are you thinking? And I talk about a certain scenario, and he's like, and then he wants to dive deeper into that, and I'm just like, not that I don't want to dive deeper into it, I'm like, but that's not my my issue, you know. And then, you know, physical exercise is a form of therapy.
Well, yeah,
so,
I've overused the fuck. Yeah. I've like almost abused that. Like, I'm trying to like not let myself use it as a form of therapy, because I used to be like, oh, I'm feeling shitty, I'm gonna go run for 3 hours. Like, I'm gonna go work out all day. Like, that's all I'm gonna do. And then
proper sleep to get sleep, nutrition. I did everything, and it helped. Yeah. But I felt like I was missing something. And then you know what it was is bringing it back to when people talk. It opens up, and then people understand. They realize they're not the only ones. It was my friend Mike. Mike is a great, loving human being, right? Former SEAL. He's still a warrior, and one day he told me, he's like, yeah, you should. I think you should do ketamine therapy, and because he saw how I was, right? He saw something from the outside, right? And he told me, and then he opened up. He's like, before the ketamine therapy, I was a very selfish, angry individual, and I'm like, that's not the Mike I know. And he would tell me that at bars he would get into fights, and because he trained and he's really tall, and he's like, I would just head kick somebody, or if it was traffic related, you know, I would get out and be like, dude, what the fuck? Well, let's go then. And I'm like, that's not the Mike I know. The Mike I know would never do that. The Mike I know built community. He's still obviously a go-getter. He still believes in physical fitness and mental health and stuff like that. Like, that's the Mike I know. Yeah. So when he told me that, it was a black and white difference. Like, oh, wow. I'm like, if it did that for him, then it can do something for me. Yeah. And I've been trying everything. Yeah. And it's helped, but I always felt like something was
missing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was the game changer. But I don't think it's for everybody. Yeah. Like psychedelics, I don't think it's for everybody. I don't think so
either. I think in the future I'll probably dabble in it, but as of right now, I'm like, I'll just stick to regular therapy and working out and like see where that gets me. I don't feel, the good thing is right now I don't feel like stuck. I feel like sometimes in the healing process you hit like a stump and you're just like, you know what I mean? But like the thing about me is like, I don't know, I'm a firm believer, and I don't think you have to forgive. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's like, forgiveness is a key. It's like, for me, like, I will never forgive my father. I will never.
Yeah, I don't think you should. Or
whatever, am I at war with it? And like no. Like, do I hold like resentment? Like, not like maybe towards him a little bit, but like, do I hold resentment in my regular life because of that? No. Like, I'm at peace with myself and who I am and like who I'm becoming and where I'm going, but I still will never forgive or forget. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's like a bullshit lie that everyone says. It's like, you have to like forgive. And I think for certain instances it's good, you know, but it's like, I think if it's certain things like,
I think for that you don't.
No, you can't.
No, hell no.
You can't. But I remember when I've had 3 therapists, and one I literally only went to one time because they mentioned something about like forgiving and blah blah, and I was like, you're not the one for me.
Later.
You are not the one for me. I think I'm gonna take a step back and go to someone else. But for me, it's like, it's good because I don't feel stuck. I've definitely felt stuck before. Like, you get to points where you're just like I don't feel myself healing. Like, you know, I've been at points where I'm holding a lot of resentment and I'm just mad at life, and I'm just like, why did this happen to me? Why does this? And I'm talking about like, I'll project it onto like, you know what I mean? Like, someone cuts me off and I'm like, why the fuck would you cut me off? Like, what did I do to you? And it's like, I used to get mad at things like that, and it's like, it's not about that. It's a little deeper than that. But luckily I haven't really been been too stuck. I feel like I'm finally in like an emotional like state, like, or just like in a position in life where I feel safe enough to kind of process all these, like, because you play survival mode, you know what I mean? Like, you try to be successful, you have a family, you try to make that like safe and like healthy, and then it's not until like you are in a like safe emotional state where you feel like you can kind of be vulnerable with the people around you.
Yeah.
That's when you can fully start healing. Like, and I'm talking stuff like deep stuff. You know what I mean? Because I feel like a lot of times you don't process things at the time or even like forever because you don't feel like you're in a state where you're like emotionally safe to do that. Because there was times where like a couple of years ago or a year ago, if I would try to like process the stuff I'm processing like now in therapy, I would have been a mental case. Like, I would have been like, I should go to a mental hospital. Like,
yeah.
Just because I wasn't in a place where I was like, the support system around me, I didn't want to talk about it, like blah, blah, blah. Like, but now I finally feel like, all right, like I'm stable enough and like whatever that like now I can process stuff that like I didn't want to process before. And is it fun? No. But at least I'm not like, I can process it and it won't ruin my day anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or like won't make me feel like I'm like a lunatic. Because sometimes I'm like, damn, sometimes my trauma responses from stuff I've been through, like that I respond with now, I'm like, damn, is this normal? Like, I don't know how many times I'm like, is this normal? Or am I like responding out of trauma?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but it's a constant battle. But I feel like I've been making good strides lately. And I feel like it's been hard because I used my career as an escape for a long time to ignore it. So that's why I'm taking this time, because I think improving myself like as a person and like healing these certain parts of me will like better me as an athlete.
Oh,
and I
definitely.
feel like you always get a lot of pressure, like, and it's not bad pressure, but like good pressure from like coaches and teammates that are like, haven't seen you in a while, hope to see you back, blah, blah, blah. Like, and it's like, I'm just trying to like work on Kay as the person, you know what I mean? Because like I'm only 23 and like fighting has always been great to me and it's always been an outlet, but it's always been an excuse for me to not work on myself. And it's like, I will let myself, like, I'm not just a person who is like, I can balance like wanting to be the best in the world and emotionally healing myself. It's like, I don't know why, I just can't do that. Maybe what I've been through is too hard to process as I'm trying to train full time and as I'm trying to like diet full time and like, you know, in camps, like, I don't really hang out with friends. I don't really hang out with my family because you can't really eat anything. You can't really drink anything. So you're just like, I'm just going to, like, stay home and, like, be by myself for 10 weeks, which is not healthy in itself. But I can't process my trauma during a 10-week camp because I got a fight coming up. I got to worry about my fight. I can't be in mental shambles when I'm, you know, preparing for a fight. So it's like, for me, and I was always in camp mode. I always had something lined up. So it's like I never gave myself that time. Yeah, it was probably an excuse, like, you know, I mean, who the fuck wants to, like, feel vulnerable and bring up the shit they've been through? Like, their childhood, no one does. Like, I don't want to, but it's, like, sometimes you have to. So for me, it's, like, that's why I'm taking, like, a little bit. I mean, I'm still training every single day, like, 2-3 times a day sometimes. Like, I'm still putting in the work, but I'm not putting that, like, the pressure of, like, fighting right anytime soon. You know what I mean? I've already had 2 long camps this year, 2 fights this year, like, I'm going to wait till maybe the end of the year, maybe early next year. I'm not in any rush. I'm just trying to, like, get my mind right and then, like, get my passion back. Because I feel like I've kind of drained myself of that. Yeah. It's really hard when, like, you fight to get to the UFC. Everyone does. You know what I mean? Like, if you're an MMA fighter, like, that's the place that you want to be. And some people spend their whole career working to get there and they never get there. I got there at 20. You know what I mean? And I worked so hard to get there and I'm finally there and I'm like, this is it. All right. Like, I came from Invicta, and Invicta is like a super personal organization. Like, Shannon Knapp is amazing. It's very family oriented. Like, they have your best interests in mind. Whether you're one of their top athletes or you just fight for them one time, like, they're very good to you. And I started working with the UFC, and it's just like, I don't give a fuck about you. And I mean, like, that's how it is. You know what I mean? Like, it's a business, and it's like, but I think I was so young, and I was like, holy shit, like, they don't give a fuck about me. And, like, not in a bad way, because it's like they have so many athletes and they're the best in the world. It's a dog-eat-dog world, you know?
Yeah.
But I was like, man, like, if I failed, they don't care. They just move on. Like, and for me, I think it was like, I didn't have the best relationship with the matchmaker either. I don't know why, but we just kind of butted heads a little bit. So I feel like I just kind of, like, lost the passion. Because I was like, damn, like, they don't really, like, there'd be times where I was like the last fight on my contract, I remember being like, I don't want to say too much because whatever. But I remember I was coming off a 2-fight losing streak. I thought I won the Corey McKenna fight, but I lost. So I'm coming off a 2-fight losing streak technically.
You won too.
Yeah, I thought I won that fight, and then I went up to 125. So I'm like, okay, I thought I won the Corey fight, and I went up a weight division, so I'm going to go back down. So I know it's the last fight on my contract, but I still have a lot of potential. Like, I think I'm like, in the future, I'm going to be one of the best in the division, you know? So I'm coming off 2-fight losing streak, technically, and they offer me the last girl I fought. She's like 7-0, coming off the Contender Series. And all I said was like, yeah, like, I'll take the fight. Like, I think I could win. I was like, but I think there's fights that make better sense for both of us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's all I said. And I have always been a yes man. Like, if you look at the text between like me and all my matchmakers I've ever had, will you fight so and so? Within a minute, yes, no second thought. And all I said was like, because I was like, this is the last fight of my contract, so I want it to be a good one, you know. So I'm like, I just feel like I was like, yeah, I'll take the fight. You know, I think I could win, but I also think there's better fights for both of us. Like, and he got so offended. I don't want to go into detail because I like McMahon, and it's McMahon. I love McMahon, and I don't know why we kind of butt heads a little bit. I'm hoping to fix that in the future, but that's all I said, and I think he might have took it wrong. Like, I was trying to tell him what to do, but I wasn't. I was just like, you know, usually if someone's like even 1-1 in the UFC, they fight someone who just lost in the UFC or like someone. Yeah. So it's like you want to give me like all 3 out of 4 of my opponents besides my debut was Contender Series winners. So I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it was just a weird relationship. And it kind of just like, I'm very hard on myself too. And before the UFC, I didn't really have any camps. I would just train full time. And then if I had a fight on like 2-3 weeks notice, my UFC debut was on 6 days notice. Damn. I like literally would just be like, yeah, let's go, fuck it. Like, I've been working like full confidence. But then my last 3 fights, I've actually had like 8 to 10 week training camps, and they've all went so fucking smooth. Like, I'm talking about like my sparring is on point, my jiu-jitsu's on point, like everything looks so fucking good, and then I get in there and I'm not the same fighter. I don't know what it is, like, but I think it's just a mental disconnect. I think I didn't know how to balance like the mental part of like 8 to 10 week camp. Like, that's a long time to just like be hard on yourself and like have no, like, I have no mercy for myself. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, if I suck one day at training, I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, do you not want it? Do you not care? Like, I'm just so mean to myself, and that's something I'm working on. But that's just the way I was raised, and like that's the way like my dad was with me with sports, and like that's why I was so good, and that's why I was in the UFC at 20 years old, because I had done that. Yeah. So in my head, I'm like, I'm doing everything right. But like when I say everything was on point, like I looked amazing, and then I would go and I would fight, and I'm like, who the fuck is that fighting? Like, that's not me, but it's like, it's all mental. Like, yeah. I think by the time I got to fight week, I was like, fuck, finally, like, let's get this shit over with. I've been in hell for the last 8 to 10 weeks. And I'm not even talking about, like, my coaches are amazing. I'm just talking about the way I put pressure on myself. You know what I mean? And like, and this is the thing is my coaches, like, they know me. So like, the only thing my coaches really tell me is like, take a fucking day off. You know what I mean? Like, my coaches don't have to like be on top of me. Like, they'll give suggestions when they need to, and like, and I respect them and I take them into consideration and I listen. But I've always been a very like, I'm a good athlete. Like, I will put in the work. I will whatever. Like, the only thing coaches really tell me is like, you need a break. Like, take a couple days, relax, take the weekend off. But I would put so much pressure on myself, like during camps and everything, that after 10 to 12, 8 to 12 weeks, whatever it was, I would just be like, fuck, like, let's get this over with. And I remember going into fights being like, fuck yeah, it's fight week, like, let's go. And then these last couple fights, I was just like, fuck, like, I've put in so much work, like, I just need to, like, we just need to get this day over with. Like, I just want to fight already. And then I'm in the cage and I'm just like, I'm not having that passion because I'm just like, wear myself out for 10 weeks, you know? Yeah. So it's something I'm learning. I think different camps are different for everyone, but I think for me, like, right now I'm just trying to find that passion back again. It's hard for me to train without having like super high expectations for myself, or like and like all my coaches, they have like good intention, you know what I mean, and a lot of them are like, they're used to seeing me in like every day, all day, so they're like, hey, like, where are you at, like, hope you're doing good. And I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to learn balance, and it's hard for me because when I want to go all in, like, I want to just train like 24/7. So like, that's why right now I'm trying to learn how to like love what I do, and like maybe like my next like camp, I don't even really want to have a camp. I just want to do what I used to do. I just want to train. I never used to spar. And then these last 3 camps, I've sparred a lot. And I look great when I'm sparring, but then I train like shit. So I'm like, maybe next camp I won't spar. Maybe I'll just like, you know, do some jiu-jitsu. Like, I'll still drill and go live in like jiu-jitsu and wrestling. And like, I'm getting my live goes in and I'm still drilling hard. But like, maybe I won't spar. Like, that's another thing is after my fight in April, I had a bad concussion. like a really bad concussion. And that's the main reason I took off like at least a month, because do you know who Flo is? You know Flo?
Yeah.
Yeah, so me and her sparred. We did boxing sparring and MMA sparring. We did once a week boxing, once a week MMA for like weeks and weeks. And we got some good rounds in, but we were throwing. We were throwing, and I was dieting because my fight back in April was back at 115. It was my first time going to 115 since November of 2021. I had just recovered from like all my eating disorder stuff, so it was my first drop, you know what I mean? So I'm eating healthy, I'm trying to keep my weight low. Obviously means my brain is more like susceptible to shit. We're just throwing, boxing, MMA, doesn't matter, we're beating the shit out of each other. By the time I get to the fight, I cut weight, and I missed weight by like 2 pounds, I think, and that's my first time in my career that I've ever missed weight. And like my body just kind of stopped sweating, and like it just wouldn't sweat. I was just baking, you know what I mean? So I was like baking, couldn't get down. I ended up fighting, and after that fight, like I just had headaches all the time. And I think I remember the moment in camp when like I felt it, because me and Flo were sparring, and we were boxing, and I bobbed and weaved, and she like accidentally hit me like on the top of the head, and I remember I was like I kind of like froze for a second, and I was like, whoa, like the feeling of getting hit on the top of your head, like it doesn't get hit very often, you know? But I had like a really bad concussion after that, because I had my camp for January. I trained from forever, but like October all the way till my fight in January. I trained pretty hard for that. And then that next week, I had my next fight contract scheduled for April. So I jumped right back into camp that next week. Like I didn't have any time off. Like I took like a week and a half, 2 weeks off maybe. And I was like, fuck it, like let's go back to sparring, back to everything. And by the end of that last fight, especially after like I baked myself, I think, and like I don't think I even absorbed that much in the fight. But anything you absorb after like cutting that weight and like not doing it properly, my problem was I didn't water load. So I was only walking around at like 125. So I was like, oh, I don't have to water load. Like getting down to 116 will be easy, because like I used to do my weight cuts really bad. I used to walk around at like 135, and I used to just cut to 115 in a week. Just like young metabolism, like. 1 week out, I'd cut everything out, all the sodium, everything. I'd bake in a sauna, and I would make 115 easy. So I was like, damn, I was like 125 to 128 in that range, and I was like, damn, this shit's gonna be like easy. Yeah. I should have water loaded. It was not a very smart move, but after like baking and shit, I think any shots I absorbed after that camp, I had a bad concussion for like a month and a half. Like even now, I still like when I haven't sparred since before my last fight, and I don't intend to anytime soon, because I'm only 23, and I was having headaches like every day, all day, like spacey. Yeah. Like I'm talking about like I was putting the mayonnaise back in the cup cupboard. Like I was doing shit that I was like, Aaron was like, why did you just, that's milk. Why is it in the pantry? I'm like, I don't know, actually. That's a great question. But like I feel better now, but like I'm probably not going to spar, because it's like, man, I'm only 23, and like I've given a lot of my body and myself to this sport, and like I love the sport, and I want to give more of my mind and my body to the sport, but I want to be a functioning person as well. You know what I mean? You're young, and it sounds like you're starting to live. You're working on yourself. You're becoming. Do you feel like you're more alive now? Oh yeah. Well, it's crazy because this is I took like after my fight, I took like 2 months off. Like I was still in the gym with Lou. Like I'm still like doing fitness shit, but like I took the time off from training, like martial arts training, for like 2 to 3 months, and I didn't miss it. I didn't miss it at all, and that's when I knew I was burnt out, because I love this shit. Yeah. And like I like it now. You know what I mean? Like, and I have that like I look forward to going to class now or whatever. But for a good couple months, I was like, I don't miss it at all. Like, I don't care. And then like I was like, honestly, I'm just gonna wait until I feel like I want to go back again. And then slowly I would start going to like Mondays with Tyler, and then I start going to wrestling, and like now I'm training every day for the most part, doing skills training every day, but. It was nice to like take that time off, and then like I got married. So and then it was kind of crazy because I got married in June and my fight was in April. So I only had like a month without like fight stresses to like kind of plan a wedding. I was planning a wedding, getting ready for a fight, which is probably stressful as it is. It actually wasn't bad, because so me and my husband, we were on the same page with all the wedding stuff, and I knew that the fight came before the wedding, and that's when my husband was like, don't even worry about most of the wedding shit. Like we'll have like a month in between after your fight. So there was no like, and some people said that, they were like, do you think you lost because you were like sidetracked? And I was like, no, like everyone in my family and his family knows that, like, when I have a fight, that fucking comes before anything else that I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
Obviously, like, not like my relationship or like whatever, but when it comes to like a wedding or an event or like my birthday, I don't give a fuck. Like, my fighting comes first, and they all know that, so that was good. But after that fight, I was like, all right, time to plan a whole fucking wedding and get everything going. So like for like a month until my wedding, I was stressed the fuck out. I was like, how are people stressed planning a wedding? It's not. And we had a simple wedding too. Like, our wedding was nice, but like it wasn't extravagant. It wasn't like in this church. Like, you know what I mean? Like it looked really nice, but it was still just like making sure everything is done, and like it was stressful as fuck. But it was nice to like be a normal person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For a few months, I was like, oh, like I don't have to go train. Like, I don't have to do this. Like, I'm a normal human being. And it's nice to, like, because you forget when you're just, like, so engulfed in your work, whether it's fighting or anything, when you're so engulfed in what you do and you're giving yourself to this, you forget, like, oh, shit, like, you know what I mean? It's like, now it's cool because it's like, I'm a normal person. I just got married. Like, now I'm a wife. Like, now I can, like, play that role. And it's like, I feel like in a lot of my relationships and everything, like, I was never fully there. Because I was like, well, fighting comes before all this shit. So, but now I'm realizing, like, yeah, fighting is important, but, like, it might benefit you to, like, be a normal person and to value your life and to value and, like, be happy in your life. Because, like, I still struggle with this, but, like, my source of happiness sometimes still stems from, like, success. So it's like, say, like, I've lost my last 3 fights. So for me, I was like, fuck, like, wow, like, that's really bad. Like, I was, like, in a bad, like, you know what I mean? But then I was like, all right, but on the flip, like, you didn't lose horribly. Like, you still looked great. Like, a minute difference of you controlling something in all 3 of those fights, and you could have won.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you were outclassed, out-talent. Like, you were there in all those fights. If you would have mentally been a little more, you would have won.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for me, I'm like, well, the talent's there. It's just a little mental shit I got to fix. On top of that, it's like, all right, like, you know, now I'm married. I'm committed to, like, a married relationship. Like, now I want to buy a house, and now I'm, like, thinking about, like, when I want to do that. You know what I mean? It's like, now I have these other things that I'm looking forward to in life that, like, if you would have told me, like, 2 years ago that I would have been doing, I would have been like, fighting comes first. Like, and it's like, yeah, success is important, but it's like, I was miserable. When I wasn't training, when I wasn't getting ready for a fight, I was miserable. I was like, well, what am I doing with my life if I'm not getting ready for a fight? I'm useless if I'm not fighting. And it's like, what do you mean? Like, you're a wife, you're a daughter, you're an older sister, like, you have 3 dogs, like, you have friends, like, you are a person outside of this sport. And I feel like, I don't know, it's easy for people to, like, engulf themselves in what they do. And I see some friends that do that, like, you know, training wise, and it's like, I get it, to each their own, but it's like,
I think you're gonna come back better than ever.
I think so too.
I think you're doing the right moves. I think the more you work on yourself, that's very important. I think whatever it is you end up doing or you want to do at the end of the day, you're going to be successful.
I think so too. Yeah.
I'm in your corner. I'm pretty sure Ryan's in your corner. You have all of us in your corner. And I'm excited for whatever it is you do. I mean, I'm there to support. You've been so supportive of OG Pumpkin, and thank you so much, because the
no
company
need to thank me at all.
is not me. The company is all of us.
Yeah, definitely.
The beginning of this whole thing was community, and I'm not a community. It's all of us.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
No, thank you for having me.
It means a lot.
Anytime. I had fun.
Is there anything else you want to plug in or anything?
No. Just me.
No, definitely.
We can do that.
Yeah. Brian, any final thoughts?
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Glad to be back here.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.